Wes Buck Show.
It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, my drag racing friends and family. It is Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021, and the Wes Buck Show starts right now. We have a totally stacked show for you guys today. This is going to be, dare I say it, a barn burner. I believe it's going to be a barn burner. But before we get into it, before we talk about these incredible guests, I want to talk about the most important guest. And that's you guys. And I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for joining us every Wednesday, being a part of this conversation. It's so meaningful. Not your presence is great. Watching the eyeballs, our sponsors and our partners appreciate those things. We appreciate those things. But it's your engagement, your interaction that, in my opinion, makes this deal so special. So thank you on behalf of myself, everybody at the Wes Buck Show, Drag Illustrated Magazine. Thank you guys for being a part of this. It would not be the same without you. However, we do have an awesome lineup of guests today. We're going to be joined about 3 o'clock Central Standard Time by the one and only famed drag racing media strategist and industry insider, Elon Warner. Very exciting. We're going to break down some of the championship scenarios that exist as we head into the close of the NHRA drag racing season here in 2021. We will also be joined by NHRA Pro Stock team owner Richard Freeman as we address what I believe to be the elephant in the room, the rumor, the scuttlebutt, the controversy surrounding a couple of round wins out at the NHRA Dodge SRT Nationals in Las Vegas this past weekend. We will bookend the show with what I believe to be it has to be an awesome conversation with NHRA Top Alcohol Funny Car Champion and Midwest Drag Racing Series Funny Car back-to-back Funny Car Champion, Sean Bellemeur. It's going to be a hell of a time. But before we get into it, and as we get into it, let's bring on my co-hosts, my partners in crime here on the Wes Buck Show, the one and only Mike Carpenter and JT Murder Tundra Hudson. What's up, guys?
What's up?
It's good to be back, eh?
Yeah.
I love
Every
it.
Wednesday. This is like what? This is like 12 or 13 in a row.
I think it's
13.
13.
13.
Okay, 13 in a row.
So
How
we're
about
back.
it, man?
We're back every week.
It's well, you know what, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be.
That's
and
14,
I'm so
14 in a
glad.
row.
14 weeks in a row, and I love it, man. I love
when
that
you
we get
said-
to do this one after another, and get some momentum.
You said Elon's coming on. I thought your shout outs to Elon Musk last week had paid off.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to air that out a little bit. I did, admittedly. I'm just going to say it's not...
Elon Warner, though, we'll take that.
We'll take Elon Warner. But in all fairness, I did reach out to Tesla last week. I reached out to Elon Musk directly via every social channel. I mean, I found him on MySpace. Sent a note. I found his account on Vine.
Page on MySpace
No, I don't think
anymore.
any of that stuff even exists. Yeah. I just made that up, to be honest. But I sent him a
deleted your
note
page,
across
JT.
every possible platform, because I do think this is something that's going to be an issue in the future. We joked last week here on the show that, these Teslas are getting so fast, the new Plaid. I mean, it's a little scary to think about untrained drivers just jumping behind the wheel of one of these things and clicking some buttons on an iPad or whatever the hell's in the dash and getting hurt badly. So I do think it would be fun to talk to Elon here, but we will settle happily. This is not a negative thing. We will happily settle with Elon Warner. I actually love talking to Elon. He's a bit of a behind the scenes giant. I mean, not only figuratively and literally. He's a big man. He towers over me for sure, which isn't saying much, but he is the definition of like an industry insider. I kind of think of him as something of like an Adam Schefter or from the NFL world, or one of these guys, Adrian Wojnarowski, that just seems to know what's going on, knows the inside scuttlebutt. So I'm super excited to have Elon on the show, and I'm sure Freeman will bring the fireworks. There's no doubt about that. And Sean Bellemeur, as I told you guys in our pre-show meeting in the green room, that Sean, this Top Alcohol Funny Car superstar, super verbose guy, extremely well-spoken, polished and poised, and has an opinion, has a perspective. And I can't wait to dive into a little bit of that here today because I've got some big questions for that guy. We also have another special guest in the house. Let's bring him in here. Senior editor, Drag Illustrated Magazine, a longtime friend of the magazine and friend of all of us here on the air. What's up, Josh Hatchett?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
What's up,
Josh?
Oh man, we're glad to have you,
Good to
dude.
be here.
You're a perfect fit for where this whole conversation is going to go first. We for the last few weeks we've really enjoyed bringing up a slew of news topics and just riffing on this stuff. Mike and myself, JT, and whoever happens to join the party today. Senior editor at Drag Illustrated Magazine, the one and only Josh Hatchett. So I'm excited to have you. Before I dive into some of these topics, guys, I do want to ask everybody in the comments, if you don't mind, check in. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know where you're. I always love to see the New Zealand or the Antarctica or whatever the case may be, or Northeast Texas. So let us know where you're watching from. Let us know maybe where you're headed this coming weekend for a race, where you're headed, where you're headed home from perhaps this week. All of you tuning in from the SEMA show in Las Vegas. Huge shout out to you guys going out there and supporting our industry. Let us know your thoughts on the show, how things are going. We really do genuinely enjoy knowing where everybody's checking in from. So without any further ado, I will dive into kind of, the first couple of topics on the board for today. I think it would be crazy not to talk about the NHRA Pro Mod drag race season wrapping up. It kind of felt anticlimactic. I'll throw that around to the group. We saw the NHRA E3 Spark Plug Series roll into Vegas with the championship decided, I believe. I mean, I know it happened a couple of years ago. Josh will know for sure, but it was very odd to go to Vegas, in my opinion, and not have that topic, not be wondering, is it Stevie? Is it Mike Castellana? Is it going to be Troy Coughlin? Who's it going to be? To have it wrapped up before the last race of the season even started was a little bit painful for me personally. What's your take on that, Josh? I'll throw it to you right away.
Yeah, that was definitely stood out. Last year you had Brandon and Stevie, winner take all in like the semifinals, for the championship last year. And Stevie won it, clinched it in Charlotte, I think 2 years ago, but, often been the norm. It's gone down to the wire. Janice versus Ricky, Troy Senior versus somebody, winning the title in Vegas. So yeah, that you always want to have something on the line, at that last race. And then, it wasn't a huge field. Your world champion wasn't even there.
Yeah, I think that's something that stood out is that the guy that clinched the championship wasn't even there. Which we don't know. We don't know about Jose. Jose's kind of a mysterious character anyway, and this is a guy that will fly home between qualifying grounds, right? I mean, so it's I don't think out of the norm for Jose, and I guess it makes sense. Probably makes business sense and financial sense for him. But kind of adds salt into that wound.
I personally, I hated to see it. I know that, Jose is one of those guys that, as you mentioned, has a track record of like kind of being hard to reach. And, he'll fly in, miss a couple qualifying sessions, come in, jump in the last session. And while that's the ultimately cool James Bond 007 existence, I mean, I'm jealous. If anything, I'm
right.
jealous.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
just
it's
hating.
fantastic.
We're just hating.
But it was tough to not see that car, to see a short field, to see 11 cars show up out there, which I think everybody could have predicted would be the case. Not a huge surprise at all, but it was tough to know that, one of the series champion wasn't out there at the last race of the season. I don't know. I'm hoping to learn more about that. I would almost be relieved to find out that there was something that prevented him from showing, that wasn't a planned happening. I'm sure it was at this point, but a tough deal. Do you guys think, and there was obviously a lot of good news out of the NHRA Pro Mod race, but I want to send this kind of around the room. Mike, do you think what's your mood or your attitude, or how do you perceive the E3 Spark Plugs NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series presented by J&A Service headed into 2022? Can we get back to the glory of yesteryear, or has that ship sailed?
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, we've talked a lot about rule changes, things happening for next year. I think Lyle Barnett winning 2 out of these last 3 races with the turbo combination has reinvigorated that class a little bit. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when Lyle won, that maybe that wasn't enough to bring some of these turbo cars that are sitting on the sidelines back to the big show. maybe this second win will, and we'll see what happens. But Lyle's a great personality, but and just a legend within the racing community already. So to see something like that happen, I think gave them a shot in the arm to finish the season. I am sitting on pins and needles to see what they do with the rules in the offseason, what kind of press releases we get heading into PRI and thereafter. So we'll see. To me, it could go either way.
They got to do something though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh, I was just getting ready to throw it to you because I'm anxious you've been a student of this class specifically for a long time, intimate relationships with this category across different sanctions. You know a lot of these guys. Where do you stand on the situation?
I think the rules are actually in a pretty good spot right now. I mean, you saw a lot of parity, from, I think whenever some changes were made over the summer, you had 4 straight races where a different power adder won, Lyle, Turbo, Jose, Pro Charger, JR Gray, Blower, you had a nitrous car win. So, I mean, and Ricky Smith ran at the front at Bristol and a couple other races. So, I mean, I feel like the combination's there, but it was going to be hard to fix it as far as participation wise in the middle of a season. Like, you're not just going to, people have their schedule set for the year. Here's what we're going to do. We're not going to, so I feel like by Gainesville next year, I think there's a chance to kind of rebuild that momentum. People kind of realize the rules are, maybe a couple tweaks here and there, but in a good place. I feel like there's a chance, if you get some of these people back that, maybe not 30, 35 cars, but I think you'll have solid fields. There's potential for that.
I think there's potential for it to return. I mean, personally, from a performance aspect, you're exactly right, Josh. The rules are close. I don't care. They have to. You have to. I mean, having watched this class and paid like close attention to it for well over a decade, probably closer to 2, we're not too far away from where we want to be. I think we've got the class very competitive. Atmospheric conditions are going to come into play. I mean, we're going to have races throughout the season where the nitrous cars have an advantage perceived, the blower cars have an advantage, turbo and pro charger cars have an advantage. But I just really think that that's always been the song and dance of Pro Mod. That's always been part of the storyline. I don't really want that to change. The only way we're going to accomplish that is have the rules change from event to event, which nobody wants to see happen
this season. And I think that's part of what hurt the class this season.
Agreed.
But on the flip side of the coin of that, they were able to kind of get them lined out at the end of the season. We had great parity. So maybe they're set up to go into the
Wasn't it just a couple of years ago? We didn't think that nitrous would ever be competitive in this class.
Yeah, I mean, they've been saying
that was the discussion.
Nitrous has been dead for 15 years, but it keeps on kicking.
But it keeps on, keeping on, right? So you have somebody come in and win with nitrous.
I'm telling you, I don't want to be that guy. Money will fix it. Money will fix it. If they want to get that category right back to where they want, they're probably going to have to do what everybody else that's ever been in business for themselves has had to do, and that's spend some money. I mean, it's something that a business owner, small and large, faces routinely. You're going to be faced with times when we're going to have to make an investment, right? I mean, you're going to have to do what so many others have had to do. You're going to have to go sign the dotted line at a bank and borrow some money, right? Or you're going to have to get up and go out and sell something that maybe doesn't exist or sell it beyond its current value, right? I mean, that's what's required, and that's what they got to do.
What is the NHRA doing for the racer? Because there's competition now. You have the PDRA, you have Midwest Pro Mod Series. So what do you
NMCA, Northeast Outlaw Pro Mods? I mean, there's a lot of places to run these cars right now.
Yeah. So what are you doing for the racer that they're not? And it's got to be something.
And it's interesting because
right?
I think that they historically they've been able to just say you're going to get to race for a Wally. You're going to get to park on the same piece of dirt as John Force. I mean, that was like guilty by association, in my opinion, was like the focal point of their sales pitch, right? I mean, that's literally the focal point of it. And I don't know that those things have the value that they once had. I think that they are still valuable, no doubt about it. Racing for a Wally, we hear that all the time. Like the last few seasons, we've seen Mountain Motor Pro Stock racers get to come clamor and jump and run at the opportunity to go race merely for a Wally, right? No sizable purse, nothing. Go be part of that NHRA show. So I think the Wally trophy still cuts through, but I think that the guilty by association part has waned over the years, and maybe that's just by getting used to it, becoming accustomed to being on the property. Back then, those were the formative days of NHRA Pro Mod. It was transitioning from an exhibition to a quote-unquote professional category, and I think now that we've kind of arrived and it would appear things are as good as they're going to get, there's no further expansion. We're not going to go from 8 cars to 16 cars. We've already done that. We're not going to go from sportsman to pro. We've already done that. We're not going to, do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a lot of those things. It's like, what's next to entice these racers to choose NHRA Pro Mod? And I think it boils down to money. You've got to pay these guys some legitimate money. You've got to put in some legitimate qualifying money. I think, honestly, increase the winner's take, increase winners and winner and runner up, put some sort of, structure in place, purse structure for the round money, but really get aggressive on your sponsorship, or on your qualifying money. That's what these guys need. If you look back at like the height of NHRA Pro Mod, for instance, I mean, Mike tells stories about his dad, pro modified legend, the godfather of the category, Charles Carpenter, getting paid like $2,500 to qualify in the mid to early 2000s.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a business
difference
model
maker
back then. I mean, it made sense to do it. And I think that the purse has gone down, but the cost to do it has gone up. I think that's the big difference with a Midwest Pro Mod and even a PDRA. Regional series, less travel, fuel costs are going through the roof.
You get treated well.
Everything.
You get treated really well.
Exactly.
When you show up.
So everything has changed. So we'll see. We'll see what changes they make in the off season. They've got some smart people there at NHRA.
No question.
They've doubled down. They've invested. They've gotten people there that I feel like are capable of making some good decisions. And if I had to pick, I would lean to it rebounding next year.
I'm starting. I was worried that we maybe the ship had sailed. Right. I was genuinely concerned, man, how do they recover from a season that saw consistent short fields, 4, maybe 5 rule changes? I mean, just a lot of negative press, right? I mean, no real buzz or energy about it. And we've had some incredible storylines, and it really sucks for like the JR Grays of the world who, this no time grudge racing standout that makes it big and goes to the NHRA show. And it's kind of stunk because, I mean, it's been fantastic. He's done a great job. He won a race a couple weeks ago in Bristol. He's having an incredible season, came back from a scary accident on Thunder Mountain. Lots of things. Lyle Barnett's emergence on the scene as a contender, winning a couple races late in the season. Some great storylines, but it doesn't seem like it's been enough to offset the 10 cars, 11 cars ruled controversy. But I do think maybe the tide has officially turned, because I've had a couple of conversations these last few days with race teams and team owners and drivers involved in Pro Mod, and they all said the same thing. Like, I don't know what, the payout's always been bad, and we've always, a lot of these things have always been that way. So now that the cars are all pretty close, what's the problem now?
But you do have competition. And then you mentioned, more money. How do you sell that to a sponsor though? I mean, you're not giving them any airtime, and you're not treating the best out of all your pro classes. So, how are you going to a sponsor and sell them that to them?
It's definitely a tough deal. We'll see.
I mean, what you have to do is you have to dive into it and actually develop. I call them, you guys have heard me. You guys work with me every day. Irresistible offer. What's your irresistible offer? What's the thing that you're going to say that or put in front of somebody that just makes too much sense? And I got to be honest, like if I look at some of these decks that I've seen to sponsor a race, I mean, 50 tickets and some banners on the wall along a chain link fence ain't enough. Some catered food on a couple of days ain't enough, right? Some commercials on a Jumbotron ain't enough. I hate it. Those things are all very powerful and it's great, but I do think it has to extend beyond that. And I think they're going to have to find some sort of way to either engage the local market they're in, pay money to the racers. I will tell you, and I've experienced this personally many times, the quickest way to get a sponsor to spend money is give a bulk of it to the racers. That is you want to talk about a surefire way to have a sponsor feel good about their investment, pay it forward. Now, listen, everybody's got to butter their bread. There's a lot of bread at times to be buttered. I'm not saying to get a check from a sponsor and just give it all to the racers. If you're in a position to do that, Absolutely. But I've said many times before right here on this show that people need to recognize that race promotion is a business model, and we need these guys making money. We need these guys having success. It's important. We want the NHRA to make $1 billion. I want every race promoter to be as successful as possible. But the reason I think that promoters like Steve Wolcott, Raleigh Miller at the NMCA have such strong sponsorship support, Donald Long down in Valdosta in Orlando with his radial tire events, they pay so much money to the racers. They get a lot of sponsorship support, but their business model isn't such that it's reliant on that money alone. They're going to sell tickets. They're going to do other things. They're going to sell parking spots. They're going to charge entry fees. They're going to find a way to make the math work, but they're going to give a bulk of the money to the racers. And I think a lot of sponsors, if the NHRA announced that they were going to have 10 or 12 races in 2022 for Pro Mod, and I know we've got a lot to cover, we'll wrap this up, but if they announced that there was an opportunity to sponsor each one of those races for 50 grand or whatever, and all but 5 grand of it was going to go to the race teams, I think they'd sell out by the end of the year. That's my honest to God belief. You would have people coming out of the woodwork to support that category if they knew the money was going back to the racers. So I don't know, closing notes as we move on. We got to talk about a couple more Pro Mod things before we dive into some other stuff, but I'm anxious to hear if you guys agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. I do think there's some good young drivers, not young, but new to the class as far as, Lyle, JR, Justin Bond.
That has to help too, seeing those guys come in, right?
Yeah, and have success. And who knows, maybe you get a guy, stuff with travel and all that, Sidney Frigo, guys like that, maybe that opens them up next year, hopefully, fingers crossed, stuff like that.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, and that is something that I don't want to completely gloss over. I apologize. I'm trying to keep my screensaver from kicking on. It takes me a second here. I forget to turn this app on. But anyways, to that point, I mean, check this out. I had this graphic drawn up, and I know we're trying to move on from the Pro Mod conversation, but Dmitry Samorikov,
that's a tough one.
Makes history. First Russian pro driver to compete in NHRA,
some more vodka.
NHRA competition. Yeah. But don't you think that's a really incredible storyline? We heard about this from one of our UK insiders. Luke Robinson sent us a note that he'd found out that an FIA Pro Mod standout, Dmitry here, was going to come and run at Las Vegas, sponsored by SMP Racing. It was a big deal overseas. He let us know about it. Sure enough, you check the entry list, and here's a Russian on the intro. I think this is a really cool moment. I don't think this is something that gets talked about enough. The international, I admit we talked about this a little bit last week, but I believe Pro Mod's the universal language of our sport. It's like music to car people. Everybody knows what it is. It represents a certain brand, a certain style, a certain attitude.
Why do you think that is? Like, how did that happen? How did Pro Mod become the international language of drag racing?
I think it became the international language of drag racing probably by way of some California car magazines in one way, like being that they were like so influential, right? I mean, like everybody around the world would like look for Super Stock and Drag Illustrated and Carcraft and all those titles, right? That had people like, your father, Rob Vandergriff, Scotty Cannon, all these guys on the cover. And I think the cars were loud. They spoke to a nostalgic kind of a yesteryear a little bit. I think they spoke to the early funny car days where the cars all had personality. A lot of them had names. They represented different makes and models. They still looked like cars. They weren't long, skinny dragsters or funny cars that were, nowhere near a factory vehicle. I think that had something to do with it. And I also, John Ford III, longtime photographer at Drag Illustrated, and I have had this conversation on a multitude of occasions. It's funny, no one ever really talks about the significance of Pro Mod like on a massive scale to drag racing. You know what I mean? Like it was, there's not like pockets of funny cars all over. There's not pockets of Top Fuel cars all over. There's not even pockets of Pro Stock cars all over. But there are more Pro Mod races than you can shake a stick at on any given weekend of warm weather. And that's very unique. It doesn't exist in any other category of drag racing. So I think the combination, that lightning in a bottle of cars that still look like cars that look like cartoons, they all look like Rat Fink kind of, burly, crazy, charismatic driver jumping in a car with a huge engine sticking out of the hood. I think that they just represent maybe at the highest or purest level, the outlaw nature that drag racing really was built on. You know, drag racing's for bad boys, rolled up shirt sleeves, you know what I mean? A pack of smokes. I mean, it
was
just
approachable in the early days. You know, you could get, it was like the way in, it was like the gateway drug. It kind of still is, but these guys really took to it, I think, because it was approachable. I mean, it was affordable and approachable. And I
basically just saying they're badass.
They are. It's the most badass thing. Right. And I think this is something we could explore like at a even deeper level in the future, because it is fun to talk about how unique the fan following. Because think about think Pro Mod Zone, Pro Modifieds.us. Like there's these entire communities that were built around Pro Mod drag racing before social media and has continued onto social media. There's all these little, very successful. I think of John Mazzarana's Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod Association, the longest running door slammer club in drag racing history. It's really unique. The success of the PDRA, all these different incarnations of Pro Mod racing that has existed over the years, rises and falls. It's very, very unique in my opinion. I'm sure there are parallels that could be drawn to other categories in drag racing, but it seems to stand alone to me. And I think that the fact that these cars are raced across Canada, through all across North America, throughout the UK, the Middle East, Australia has an incredibly strong door slammer following, their top door slammer category. It just hits home for a lot of hardcore race fans, man. And there's Luke talking right there. Very cool deal. Dimitri this weekend making his debut in Vegas. Huge congratulations to that young man. What an accomplishment. I'm sure he'll never won a round against Stevie Jackson. Did anybody else spit out their soda when that happened? I did.
They said they were buzzing.
Yeah.
Bro, it was
for forever. He'll be talking.
he could hang it up. Yeah. In all honesty, if you're a foreign competitor coming, to enemy territory, so to speak, let's make it as dramatic as possible, and you score a round win against our Hulk Hogan, or our,
true, right?
What more do you, you came over here and knocked Rocky clean out, one punch, you're done. What more are you going to try to do? I don't know how you're going to one up that, what a moment for him. And speaking of moments, holy cow, Lyle Barnett does it again. Turbo for the win in Las Vegas. Fan favorite driver, earns his second career national event win inside of 3 races. Really impressive with a new to him car. Do you think, we touched on this briefly, but let's rapid fire. Are we going to see what's the over under on 4 Pro Mods signed up for Gainesville 4 Turbo Pro Mods signed up for Gainesville 2023?
Give me the over.
Yeah, over. Yeah, I'm going to write that down. Wow, Josh, how about you?
I'm going to say it's a push. I'm going to say 4.
Ooh.
Nobody, man, that's no pushes.
I know.
I like that. I like the push. I think it gives us all a different answer.
Call your bookie and bet on a push. See how that goes. It doesn't pay off well.
I'm just going to nail the number.
What are we talking about here?
Well, dude, Gainesville will have 25 plus cars.
I hope.
That's why I'm taking 4. At least.
I think you're going to see, gosh darn it, Chris Thorne. It'd be insane for that car not to come back out. I think some of the guys that have the financial wherewithal to switch back to a turbo car, the one that comes to mind is Jose Gonzalez. I don't think that there's any chance you'd win a world championship and then divert course. But I've seen crazier things, and it wouldn't be when knowing that he has the financial wherewithal, likely has another car probably already ready or prepared. I'm anxious to see if someone like that turns back the clock and goes back to a turbo car where I kind of feel like they almost belong, where the legend was built.
What about Clint Satterfield? Would he come back?
Clint Satterfield, and I don't want to. This is conversations that I had with Clint early in 2021. I don't know, to be honest with you, the status of Clint's racing operation. He was a diehard supporter of the E3 Sparkplugs NHRA Pro Mod drag racing series that kind of got himself in a tough situation rules wise earlier this season. For anybody who's a student of our game, Clint Satterfield's always been, or for a long time, has been a Motec guy. He's been associated at different times with Carl Stevens Jr., Extreme Racing Engines out of the Northeast. And Carl Stevens Jr. won our race in 2018, the Drag Illustrated World Series of Pro Mod in Denver, took home $100,000 behind the wheel of his Jim Bell's twin turbocharged Camaro, equipped with Motec. That's a Motec team, along with Shane Tecklenburg, is also kind of in that camp as a guy who runs Motec. It's not debatable. He's associated with those brands. So Clint Satterfield headed into the 2021 season, if you remember, running really well. He made the switch from turbos to Pro Chargers and was having some success. They were going rounds. They were running some Midwest Pro Mod Series events. They were kind of becoming a contender rather quickly. The NHRA made some rule changes this year that made it mandatory. And I'm probably going to get beat up for this. I don't have the verbiage in front of me, so forgive me, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially made it mandatory for pro-charged cars in NHRA competition to run fuel tech. Well, when you have built all your success on the back of this move to Motec and you've got this, sponsorship level relationship, that was a no-go for Clint Satterfield. I know he went to great lengths. Lots of conversations were had to kind of get around that issue. Unfortunately, I don't know if changes were made, but the damage was already done and feelings were already hurt and decisions had already been made. But it would be cool, Josh, to see someone like Clint come back, maybe return to the twin turbo deal. I don't know that he would ever get away from the Pro Charger deal based on the momentum they were starting to have with that combo. Because what I hear, and I would love to hear from our the viewers and everybody, what we hear all the time and what we've seen is that Justin Elks, Modern Racing, that whole team, Elite Motorsports, Elite Performance, Jake Harrison, everybody involved with that operation, Andy, Lum, they're clearly managing that twin turbo power pretty well, and Lyle Barnett's doing a great job for him behind the wheel. But the talk of town is that the Pro Charger combination is just a much more linear power band, a much more manageable and combination. And the term I think I hear the most frequently is raceable. That's kind of not a term that you hear a lot, but that's exactly, I think, what the Pro Charger combination represents in our sport right now, is a very raceable combination. It's something that is repeatable. It's not as much of a moving target as a twin turbo car is. That's, it pulls the motor down. It's going to make more power. It's very different with running a turbo car, which is why I think it's such a difficult thing to do. And we've only seen a fairly small amount of people have continued high level success with turbo cars. It's an interesting thing, but I'm anxious to see what happens in 2023. I've always believed the NHRA Pro Mod Series was the final frontier for door slammer drag racing. It was the highest level, and I want that to be the case. You know what I mean? For my selfish reasons, as a fan, as a hardcore fan of Pro Mod racing, we need a quarter mile. We need we need representation on drag racing's biggest stage, the NHRA, and I hope we get back to form in 2023. Let's move on to the next topic. Oh, real quick, how about this? This is a point about Lyle Barnett. And we were going to have Lyle on the show today, guys. Not unfortunately, he's traveling home from SEMA. His flight wasn't going to land till 5:30. We plan to either bring Lyle on Monday night for the Drag Illustrated ride along when we take in, I believe, episode 4 or 5 of No Prep Kings next Monday. But the ultimate plan is to bring him and crew chief Justin Elks on the show next Wednesday afternoon. So put that in your notebook and make sure you join us next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. But Lyle, how about the fact that not anybody could have won these races that Lyle won? Like, the turbo car is benefiting a lot from the fact that Lyle Barnett happened to be the one driving it, because and I don't want to use any normal lever that's going to go 040, 050, 060 does not win in Dallas, does not win in Las Vegas. Have you considered that? Has that factored into your guesses for 2023 for turbo cars?
Well, what was he in the finals? Like 13, something like that. If he doesn't do that, he loses, obviously. So,
you have to do that though in that class, in all these classes today.
Yeah, true.
You've really got to do that. We even see these nitro cars pushing reaction times these days. So you have to push. Lyle it was very interesting when Lyle came on here a few weeks ago. He says he makes adjustments with shims on his trans brake button and everything. Obviously the dude's a wheel man, and I do think that factored into it, but all of these guys are up on the tree these days.
It's true. It's hard to take that away from them. It's like this thing has escalated rapidly. We talked about how it had escalated financially, but it's most assuredly escalated in driver requirement. The driver required to run these cars is, I hate to say it, a country mile from where it was 10 years ago. It was not unusual to see 80, 90, 100 lights scattered throughout elimination rounds in the early days of NHRA Pro Mod, and nothing, you couldn't hardly qualify with a light like that.
Well, those were with clutches, and in the case of blown cars, swapping feet, all kinds of stuff. Everything's changed since then.
It really is amazing, man. The reaction times, like in the semifinals, Lyle, just 0-21 to your point earlier, Josh, Lyle was 0-11 in the final round. And and J.R. Gray was game 0-40, I believe. Yeah, 0-40. So it's not like he was dead late. Unfortunately, that's kind of encroaching on dead late in Pro Mod right now. But holy crap, man. That's a hell of a drag race. And if, Stevie Fast, there was a lot of cars that could have won that race. So it is interesting to see the turbo car winning, but really doing it by way of the man behind the wheel. I want to touch on this real quick, ladies and gentlemen. World Cup Finals this weekend at Maryland International Raceway, a legendary facility. We spent a lot of time earlier today talking about this, Josh and I, just how significant this event has become. I don't know that people realize that it's perhaps the biggest independent drag race in the United States, if not one of the top 2 or 3 biggest events. Independent drag races in the country today. Over nearly 400 heads-up cars are already pre-entered for this race. It's
awesome.
World-class.
I see people wearing these shirts. Like I'll go to Lowe's or something, and somebody's wearing a Haltech World Cup Final shirt, and I'm like,
dude, they're apt to. They're literally no joke, man. They're apt to have 35,000 people there, and
we always miss it because we're in SEMA.
We always miss it because we're in SEMA, and it's Jason Miller has done an incredible job with this event for 25 years, headed into the 25th annual version of this race. They've got all these. What's cool about it is you see a lot of the stars of like outlaw radial racing, specifically X275, 10.5 tire, where that's still contested here in the country, namely on the East Coast. You see those guys come let it all hang out on the quarter mile. Most of those cars exist by and large on the 8th mile, but for this at this point in time, for this particular event, they run them out the back door, and it's always cool to see.
Hey JT, I'm pretty sure they have a bikini contest still at this event. You can they still get away with a bikini contest. So
you think
they get away with that? This is
entering or what?
No. Yeah, either one. Your choice.
I can do better.
Your choice.
I've been working on this.
You are looking good.
Yeah,
you are looking good, team. You really are. But I want to say,
I can win a wet T-shirt contest.
Remember, everybody out there on the interwebs, that the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by FlowRacing.com. And if you're a drag racer or a drag racing fan, you've got to get on board with our friends at FlowRacing.com, the world leader in sports live streaming. These guys provide all-day coverage, 24/7 access, essentially, to events like the aforementioned World Cup Finals, the import-domestic shootout at Maryland International Raceway this weekend. So log on to flowracing.com/Drag Illustrated right now. Make sure you sign up for a membership and join the team. It's $150, $149 to be precise. And I think it's the best money you can spend in our sport right now. If you told me 5-6 years ago that I could pay $150 and watch live drag racing on my iPhone, shout out to iPhone owners. If you told me that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I'd have laughed in your face. Today, it's a reality, and it's such because of our friends at Flow Racing. So make sure you support them because they support us, and we surely appreciate it. Guys, I don't know how much you have been following this particular event, the World Cup Finals, but I'm genuinely excited about it. I'm going to be watching along.
I thought we were going to roll that commercial.
I should have rolled that commercial, but now I felt like, let's dive into this commercial real quick while we queue up the next segment. How sick was that? It was super sick.
We've reached another level on the Wes Buck Show.
Another level, man. We got commercials coming in. Speaking of commercials, it's that time of year, man. It's trade show season, right? And it's hard to believe, at least for me, that it's already like starting to get cold outside, even down here in Texas, starting to cool off. We're getting some of those gray sky days, and that tells me it's trade show season. The SEMA show takes over Las Vegas Convention Center this weekend. I believe, I read this online, the first full capacity event for the Las Vegas Convention Center since the global pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic in early 2020. Wild to think about the fact that there wasn't a SEMA show last year, and there is one this year. I'm curious, is anybody hearing any buzz from the show? I know Mark Caruso, I talked to him. He's out there. Lyle's out there. I've been hearing from a lot of folks that were taking it in. What's the word on the street? Mike, I'll throw it to you first.
I think that everyone's excited to be back. I think that, no matter what the size of the show actually ends up being, I think everyone's excited that it's actually back. I hate that we're not there. I'm sure we'll be back next year. All of my memories on Facebook are like, this day, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, is just photos of cars or random photos of JT or something else. And it's us in SEMA. So we'll definitely have to get back next year. I'm excited that it's back. I think these trade shows are important. So I haven't heard anything negative. I don't know. I don't have any boots on the ground. What are you hearing, Wes?
Man, I haven't heard anything negative. I've definitely heard it feels a little different, right? Than years past, which I think just is.
They say that every year though. Like no matter who you're talking to, like, man, this is just a car show. I mean, I'm just used to. I'd come here and sell 10,000 parts to one guy. Now I'm selling. Are trying to sell 10,000 times one guy apart each time. That's
a good point.
I think everybody
is complaining about it.
They devolve, and that's a tough word to say, but I think there's no other way. They have devolved in some ways to like consumer-driven events versus like industry insider events. That's something that's been going on since before my time. I think they've been trending towards like popular parts of the industry since they started, right? They're super hardcore. I feel like
SEMA's kind of known for that and kind of embraces it. PRI is much more hardcore, which Billy Carroll says people really just want to know what night. I think he means the PRI Drag Illustrated party is. So, SEMA is whatever, but that's what everyone's looking forward to, right?
This may be a good time to tell you guys that the main reason we honestly had discussed going to Las Vegas to the SEMA show. I've gone to this race every year for the last 15 years. It was really odd not to go, but I have a herniated disc in my back, guys. So feel free to like send me pain pills or whatever you've got. I got my MRI results on Friday morning, and I have a herniated disc in my low back, and there are times that I can hardly walk. So when I started to contemplate I'm going to get it fixed and I'm going to be all right. But thinking about walking around that Las Vegas Convention Center or just trying to get from one of the parking lots to the front door made my heart skip a beat. I'm going, man, I don't have it in me. I've got to get better for PRI. And I think I can say that.
You could just send me and JT.
Right. Maybe that's what we should have done. Yeah. Just sent you guys out there to hold down the fort for everybody.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, you want to get out of here? It's 1:00. Yeah. We didn't get here at 11.
Oh, it's too funny, man. Now, I think for us, we kind of decided collectively just to save our energy, save our, big event energy for the performance racing industry trade show coming up that first weekend in December back in Indianapolis. I can't wait, to be honest with you guys, to get to downtown Indy, hang out with all my buddies, my brothers and sisters in the drag racing community. It's a cool thing. In my opinion, to go to an event. I've said this with Dr. Jamie Meyer. Maybe we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but it's such a unique opportunity to go be around these people that you care about and you want to spend time with without the pressures of racing, without worrying about the next round or worrying about something being broken or thrashing on the car. It's just such a rare opportunity. If you haven't been, I would encourage you guys, buy a plane ticket, fill up on gas and head to Indy because it's a worthwhile happening. If you're invested in the sport of drag racing, if you're a small business owner that sells into the drag racing industry or racing community as a whole, this is the spot for you. I would encourage you to go. I don't get a kickback from PRI yet, but I just believe in it.
If you're a car guy at all, like SEMA is so awesome for any car guy.
Yeah.
And if you're in motorsport or, in the racing at all, then I think PRI is definitely your show. And I think it's just a different crowd. Yeah, PRI, than it is at SEMA.
There's no doubt.
At SEMA, everybody's, a lot of tire kickers around there, but at PRI, man, that's everybody hardcore, and it's not just the show; it's after the show, it's the lounges, it's at the restaurants. You run into people.
That's your forte.
That's where you shine.
Oh yeah, you do your work outside the show, right?
Travis Frisbee says. Right? Travis Frisbee's asking, "Where's the party this year?" Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Major announcements coming in the days
and weeks
happening. To follow.
It will be downtown Indy, so you won't be too far away if you're at PRI.
Yeah, if you're at one of the hotels in downtown Indy, we're within walking distance of what I believe will be the 6th or 7th annual Drag Illustrated After Hours. super excited about this deal. Long-term partnership with our friends at Dodge. Just a lot of momentum. Everybody excited and fired up to come back. We've got some new partners involved, so I think it's going to be as big as it's ever been, and probably the biggest and best, because sometimes those things don't go together, right? Sometimes biggest can be the most problematic, the most chaotic. I believe this year, 2021, I like chaos too, but everybody seems to enjoy it to varying degrees. I'm excited for the biggest and best. I think we're going to see the biggest and best version of the DI After Hours. So remember, clear your schedule on Thursday night, December 9th, 2021, because we're going to burn Indianapolis to the ground. You heard it here, guys. Speaking of burning things to the ground, how about Ryan Martin? I know we spend some time on Monday nights with the DI Ride-Along talking about No Prep Kings, but the star of the show, I think one of the show's biggest kind of second-generation stars, Ryan Martin, Oklahoma's own, scored his second straight No Prep Kings championship down in Bradenton this past weekend, the house that Victor Alvarez built. What do you guys make of that season wrapping up? I know we talked about it a little bit, but man, 6-7 weekends in a row. I bet these guys are all comatose at the moment.
They've got to be. Man, I think Ryan Martin, they were talking about in the comments, like going through the numbers as far as what he won this year. He's got sponsors. He's got a contract with Discovery or Pilgrim or however that works. We don't have the insights on that. But is there?
We get a lot of requests for that. It's crazy how many requests we get. I get emails, pointed emails. Can you tell me exactly how much Big Chief makes? Exactly how much Murder Nova makes? Exactly how much Ryan Martin makes? Anyways, go on.
But he's probably the most successful door slammer racer out there right now, between financially and
money one,
and with the exposure. And just the name value. I mean, I would say,
that's crazy, right?
I'm probably going to like turn my email off after this.
You probably are.
But he's the most visible and most successful door slammer racer this season.
Yeah, he's really built his name in the last.
How many races did he win?
Incredible.
He won several. Our boy Scott, I'm going to butcher his last name. Malpass. I don't know how you say it.
Longtime viewer, friend of the show.
He actually sent me some stats.
There we go.
Comparing or showing the power adders.
There we go. Kevin Stevenson dropping knowledge. Ryan Martin won $340,000 this year in prize money alone. That is jaw dropping.
Does that include your champion's purse or your world champion's
I don't even
purse?
know what the champion's purse is.
It was $100,000. So I mean, it was $40,000 a race. Team Attack is $15,000, which is the Friday night race. As I said, the Saturday night invitational is $40,000 to win, and the championship paid $100,000. So $340,000. I mean, I'd love for everybody that races a Pro Mod, Pro Stock car of any shape or size to just kind of sit on that for the next half hour, because that's a really rough one. I mean,
that's the name. He's the name that everyone's saying right now. You know? I mean, if you talk about this stuff, it's Ryan Martin. So, kudos to him. Cody M says he's definitely earned it and good at it. You can't take anything away from him. But I think we're seeing this is a transition to where we've acknowledged this by having the DI ride along and everything that we do covering this. But this is the new normal as far as door slammer racing.
It's this situation, it has got to be hardest to swallow for, I would say, the Stevie Fast Jacksons, the Lyle Barnetts, the J.R. Grays, some of the guys that maybe aren't like bazillionaires, have clearly had some success and are secure financially, right? But to be staring at the possibility of winning that kind of money, to go back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, guys, you want to fix the E3 Sparkplugs NHRA Pro Mod drag racing series, make the money make sense. Yeah. Don't think for a second the clamoring of racers to be involved in the No Prep King series. Yeah, they want to be on TV. There's plenty of camera chasers that exist, but if not above that motivation or slightly below it, is without a doubt big money. The opportunity to go race for that kind of money, tell your friends that you're racing for that kind of money, even if you don't win it, right? Just to be able to tell your sponsors and tell the people, because let's be honest, drag racing, without question, is an egotistical function. No doubt about it, right? Very ego-driven. It's not a bad thing, and ego's healthy, right? That's a healthy thing. People get that word twisted, but my point is, a lot of these guys just love to be able to tell people, hey, man, I race in a series, they pay $100,000 to win the championship.
Look at Lyle's comment right now. Lyle's comment.
Oh, Lyle Barnett here, probably flying across the country.
We've won 2 NHRA national events in the last 4 weeks, and combined, we haven't won half of that number. Now that's crazy, right?
It is crazy.
I would say it's probably less than a quarter, not to be
till blue in the face. We're going to get Ryan on the show.
I think possibly
Monday night on the DI Ride Along. So tune in. I can't wait.
I want to dive into one more
ready for Ryan, and we're gonna pick his brain.
We got a couple more things to touch on before we dive in. Before we bring on our first guests, knowing Elon Warner, the aforementioned famed drag racing media strategist and industry insider, is rather punctual, so I'm sure he'll be be on time, right about 3:00 Central Standard Time. But let's blast through a couple of things, and we'll pile some of the next NHRA conversation to the end of this, so that we can include Elon. There he is. We need to change his name from Billy Meyer Hall of Fame track owner to maybe Elon Warner. But I want to dive into these things real quick.
Strong.
Check out the receipts posted by our longtime friend of the show, Justin Swanstrom. Mike, you're pretty tuned in with some of these cars. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is a reading from the Shannon Davis Technologies GPS-powered device on Justin's car. I believe it's a profiler device. It says that his car, I don't know when this is from, but it basically shows an 1/8 mile elapsed time of 3.72 seconds or 75 seconds at 202 miles an hour. And that's getting it. I mean, if those cars are actually running those kind of numbers, and Mike, you believe they are, you've heard inside lines that they are.
And leave it to Justin Swanstrom to do something like this, because this is like the guarded secret that I don't think that many of these guys want out there. I don't think Pilgrim and Discovery want that out there, but these cars are hauling ass. And these top level guys that are winning these races are running right around that number, if not even quicker in certain conditions.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, you've heard rumors of some of these cars dipping into the 360s, and I don't know that people fully understand. You've got to be pretty serious fan of drag racing, someone who's been around this stuff for a long time, to maybe really recognize how fast that is. I mean, that's a few years ago, that was pro extreme territory. I mean, that was screw-blown lightweight car territory.
That'll qualify you in Pro Boost or Pro Nitrous.
Absolutely. Right, I mean, and it also speaks to the fact that track's being way better than anybody wants to talk about, right?
The no prep track, I mean, they are doing what they can to make it a no prep track, but by the end of the event, and just because I think it's a sign of how over center we've gone with track prep. It's almost like an old school prep track. It's like, hey guys, we did what we can with it. It's going to come to you over the weekend. That's how we used to drag race. And now it's like on kill from the moment the first car turns a tire. You know what I mean? And so it's a different deal. And I'm here for it.
Well, I just thought it was interesting that he threw it out there for everybody to see.
Yeah. It does add some like legitimacy, right? To like, you know, because there's that segment of people who are like, oh, you know, it's just it's not real racing, or it's just a reality show, or this or that. When you're doing that and going against each other heads up, making runs like that, I mean, that's
there's a lot less anymore that are saying racing. That.
Right, but you still have your segment of people.
Yeah, there still is, but man, there at first everybody was, right?
Yeah, but this just adds, proves the point. Like these guys are hauling it and putting the time in.
It's I think that the No Prep Kings series, I think I can kind of appreciate almost every perspective on the deal, where you stand on it, fan of it, don't like it, somewhere in between. That's great. But I do think that it's reached a different level in 2021. At the bare minimum, it has elevated its status in our industry. It's become something that's, a far cry from kind of the also, whatever deal, the side, what do they call it? JT, you're the reality TV guy, the spinoff from Street Outlaws, right? It's become way more than that. It's become a competitive series. People travel around the country doing it. They go to various, you're talking about guys going to Denver, Colorado. We all know how challenging it is to race on Thunder Mountain, being willing to do that, being willing to go from Thunder Mountain to sea level on back-to-back weekends, making those kind of changes to your car, tearing up stuff along the way. It's really impressive, man. I'm proud of it, and I'm glad that we're paying a little more attention to it. Before we dive into our NHRA conversation, guys, I want to just remind everybody and thank everybody more than anything else. Our Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30 came to a close. Our nominations came to a close this past Friday. We received nearly 5,000, I think is what the final tally was, 5,000 nominations for young people in the sport of drag racing. I can't thank you guys enough. We pride ourselves on knowing all the great stories and knowing all the up-and-comers, and we definitely try to keep our ear to the ground collectively, but it never fails that there's some incredible story out there that we weren't aware of. And
that's the fun part. I mean, I love reading
really
through these nominations and being like, holy cow, man, this guy's doing something awesome, but it may be, the other side of the country, other side of the world, something like that. But like you said, the nominations that we get, thanks for helping us write these stories too, because they give us some great content, some great information.
I mean, wrap your head around the fact we had Steve Torrance send in nominations. We had Leah Pruitt send in nominations. We had Erica Enders send in nominations. We had multiple nominations from Elon Warner about to join us. I mean, all points, Scott Woody Woodruff from Jegs. I mean, these are some high level people that are casting their vote, and to get that kind, not to mention thousands of people that we don't know or don't have relationships with. We got there was one letter that Nate shared with us, the editor-in-chief at Drag Illustrated magazine, my buddy, that, what was it, like 1,500 words? It was like 6 pages typed about why this young man should be included in the 30 under 30. And I'm like,
love it.
That is awesome. I've never spent that much time filling out anything in my life.
Oh, well, that is that 5,000, and we have to, like, 0.5% of those submissions, like, we have to narrow it down. I mean, that's incredible. It's tough, man. When we start doing the first round of cuts, it's a really rough, it's a long day for this group. We pour over these things way more than people realize. I want to throw this out there. There is a belief system that the Drag Illustrated 30 under 30 is some sort of popularity contest, and it's nothing even close to that, to be totally honest with you guys. I mean, we take this deal very seriously. Every year when we do it, it's something that started as a conversation amongst this group and some racers about how we could celebrate the sport's next generation. I mean, as Mike and I can speak from experience, there's no letter jacket to be had for crewing on your dad's race car, right? There's no Letterman's jacket or high school ring.
One, but he just laughed.
I sent a handwritten letter, and then I gave up on letters. No, I'm just joking. But drag racing is such a rough and tumble sport. This sport will humble you in a minute. It will break you financially. It'll break you mentally. And when I see young people pouring their heart and souls into it, their parents spending money like they do to support them, it's so important that we provide some sort of positive reinforcement, right? We got to encourage them along the way. That's why the Drag Illustrated 30 under 30 exists. And it's why we take it so freaking seriously, because someone has to stand up and pat these young men and women on the back, encourage them, keep them excited, right? Because wins are typically pretty few and far between, unless you're a superstar, a legend of our sport, which takes a long time to achieve. You're going to have some droughts throughout your career. So it's important things like the DI 30 under 30 exist. Celebrate these young folk, keep them going to the drag races. God forbid they took up something else. My go-to is soccer. It would break my heart. It would devastate me if we had to see a bunch of kids give up junior drag show racing and play soccer. God forbid. So do your part. Seriously, encourage these young folks, whether it's casting a nomination for us on dragillustrated.com, whether it's sponsoring them with your business, if it's being at the pits. Don't bemoan the juniors getting called to the lanes, right? Thank God for those kids and thank God for their parents. Walk up, fist bump a young kid that's behind the wheel of a junior dragster. Support those guys, because I truly believe that they are the next generation of drag racing superstars. With that said, let's kind of round out our NHRA conversation and bring on our first guest of the day here. I do want to remind everybody, as always, friends and racers, the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by your friends at Elite HP, the world leader in used race cars, racing engine, parts, and tools, everything in between. Located in Fort Worth, Texas, Elite HP is operated by real deal racers who speak the tribal language of drag racing. So whatever you need, whether it's a turnkey combination of a car ready to go race along with a truck and trailer or a starter, they've got you covered. Log on to elitehp.com to see everything they've got packed in that 31,000 square foot warehouse right down the road in Fort Worth, Texas. Guys, let's go ahead and bring on our big guest, one of 3 big guests of the day, the one and only Elon Warner. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for my buddy Elon. What's happening, man? You looking good, bro.
What's up, Elon?
Thanks, man. Thanks
for coming, man. For the uninformed, Elon Warner is a legend in our business. This is a guy that has handled media relations, public outreach, and everything in between, event organization. He's done it all, works for a major league PR agency out of the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area, and most recently handled media and PR for John Force Racing. He's carried that over to Coletta Motorsports. He works intimately with the Factory Showdown teams. He works intimately with Josh Hart and a slew of other racers in our industry. And he's also just a super fun guy to talk to. So thanks for joining us, Elon. How'd you like that intro?
That's awesome. You're like, I feel like Morris Day, and you're my Maurice. You're just my hype guy. Where's my handkerchief?
Get used to it, bro. That's what we do around here.
It's awesome.
Well, hey, man,
I'm glad to talk. I'm glad to talk anything with you guys. I mean, you guys know you're my two of my favorite people out here that I appreciate you guys.
We better be.
We'll PayPal,
emails
PayPal or Venmo, Elon. Which one do you want after that comment? Which one do you prefer?
Either.
Perfect. Man, I want to talk to you. There's a lot to cover right now. Sorry, Mike. I'm going to talk over you until you give up. I'm curious. One of the things that we wanted to really bring you on here, and I'm curious when this started. You told me about this about 2 months ago, and I never knew about it. Kind of was a little pissed off when I found out that I hadn't been included in this email that Elon sends out. But when did you kind of take a liking to keeping track of all the potential outcomes and all the scenarios that exist as we dive into our NHRA Finals predictions and kind of play out some of the scenarios that are going to exist in Pomona? When did you get it? That doesn't seem like it was par for the course. It doesn't seem like it was a job requirement to dive into the stats and history and all those type of things.
I have to thank my mentor and leader, Dave Dinsmore. In 93, when I started in drag racing, Dave was one of the first people I met at Vandermeer Speedway at the first national event I ever attended. And Dave is a stats guy like me. I kind of got into stats and working in college sports in the sports information office. So I just naturally just kind of gravitated to it. And we would always just kind of keep funny car points because we were funny car people at John Force Racing. And then I was like, well, if I'm keeping funny car points, I might as well keep top fuel points. And then I just was like, well, if I'm keeping top fuel points, I might as well keep Pro Stock and Pro Stock Motorcycle. And then I just started sharing them. I mean, what's just the point of having that stuff? Because it is kind of interesting to know, even throughout the season, where everyone is in points. And because it's good for writing your stories, press releases, you're in the top 3, or, this race you moved from 6th to 5th place or 6th to 3rd place. It really gets interesting when you get to close to Indy and you're kind of getting into the top 10. What do we need to do to stay in the top 10? I actually I have a stat package of what it takes to really qualify for the countdown.
Oh, wow.
What are the bare minimums for basically, I took the stats of how many round wins, how many race wins, runner-up, semifinals, DNQs, did not starts, and have that all in a spreadsheet going back to 2007 to see what you need to do to, and I don't have it for top fuel and funny car, but what you need, minimum requirements to really make the countdown. So you can look at about halfway through the regular season, okay, how many more round wins do I historically need to make the countdown? Or if I win a race, how much does that increase my odds to make the countdown?
What do you make of, like, one of the things that you did for me, and this has been a long time ago, and I hope you remember it, otherwise this might be awkward.
Covers.
To celebrate the 100th issue of Drag Illustrated magazine, which, hard to believe, was 72 issues ago. It's almost unbelievable. I don't know if we shared this with everybody. Sometimes we make the biggest deal out of some things and then we make no deal out of other things. Right. We actually have been in business for 16 years as of October. That's Drag Illustrated has been around for over a decade and a half, man. We're super proud of that. But along the way, we put out our 100th issue, and you reached out to me with this unbelievable amount of statistics about how many women had been on the cover, how many people had been on the cover wearing sunglasses, how many people had been on the cover more than one time,
how many double covers you had, how many triples. And
it was incredible, man.
You put all the covers online. You had a cool graphic. And again, I am a huge nerd, Wes.
That explains it. So I wasn't going to say it. I was hoping you would.
I keep track of qualifying points. Like Eddie Krawick was walking through the press room one day and saw me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I keep track of qualifying points." "What do you mean you keep track of qualifying points?" "Well, I just record everybody that gets qualifying points, and I can look at how much those points add up to incrementally affect where you are in the countdown, where you are in the regular season. And then especially when you're in the countdown, they get even more important because, qualifying points are almost half a round of racing. So I went through all the covers and I just was like, hey man, I don't know if you care or not.
I did.
Like 17 guys. So, for sure I'll have to dig that. I probably have that Excel file somewhere and I'll dig it out. And then we can compare issue 1 to 100 versus issue 101 to 200 and see how you held up.
I would love to know what I'm going to bring Mike and JT. I would love to know what trends exist, to be honest, because I'm sure there are some trends that we never would have identified on our own.
I feel a little bad that we're now kind of poisoning the pond a little bit by talking about it, because now you're going to think about
the
next cover. Oh, man, I don't know. We've had like 5 guys on the cover. We better mix in a female driver, or we've had 3 crew chiefs. Better get a driver, or
we do that, but not to that level. Right. Your stats are probably way more accurate than ours. We just think about it for a couple seconds.
I just remember when I just sent that deal to Wes out of the blue, his immediate response was, "This is awesome, and I feel really bad for you that you have no life. Maybe we need to get you some friends."
That was awesome, though. I remember
it really was awesome,
super cool, though.
And
that is awesome.
It's actually a huge reminder, I think, to everybody that you got to celebrate those moments.
Yeah.
Speaking of celebrating those moments, big and small, we're headed to the biggest moment that exists in the NHRA world, right? The Camping World NHRA Drag Racing Series rolls into Pomona, California for the final time in 2021 for the NHRA Finals. Nail biter of an event, seemingly no matter the case, but especially so here in 2021. We had a lot of big happenings this past weekend in Las Vegas, but I think let's try to keep it straight, and we'll just start at the top with Top Fuel. I mean, what's kind of your take on some of the scenarios that exist? We obviously have Steve Torrance leading the way, Brittany Force, Mike Salinas, I believe, still mathematically in the hunt. What's your take on this?
This is really the only category where I think there's a driver that really has a lot. That would have to do a lot to lose this championship. Steve has a little bit over 100-point lead on Brittany, even with 1.5 points at 30 points around. The kind of stumble that Steve would have would have shown itself at some other time in his previous championship runs. I don't see any way for Steve to not leave Pomona with this 4th championship.
So how far back is Brittany, Elon?
Brittany is 105 points back.
Okay, 105. Yeah, so you're looking at like a D&Q for Steve somehow, and Brittany wins the race type of situation.
You would need to have a pro stock level qualifying effort by Brittany, where they are trying to get Steve in the first round.
Let's talk about that, Elon.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about
that earlier today. We've seen this. Greg Anderson kind of set forth the playbook last year, or
2 years ago.
2 years ago, I'm sorry. And it happens, but it's not as transparent as it was then, and it was very transparent this weekend in Pro Stock. Why don't we see more of that in the fuel ranks?
I think because their mindset is always been, I have to get to the finish line as quick as possible. Like you can't unprogram that kind of DNA level.
Right.
Like the idea of, I'm not going to run, if the conditions are out there to run 368, why would I try to run 374?
We saw it like in St. Louis. Like I thought it was completely unnecessary, the runs that were being made in the first round of the first round of eliminations in St. Louis. But the conditions were there, and people were trying to blow the scoreboards down.
Yes.
And I thought, man, you just don't really see that. They can't turn it off. Maybe
they can't. That's just and the thing is, I think they do sometimes go up there with that mindset of, okay, we just need to make a good run, or let's, maybe let's try to run in this window so we can stay in the middle of the pack, or, right around 9, 10, 11. But all they have to do is see one guy, whether it's a Clay Milliken or an Antron, or
go down a number.
And then they're like, well, now I'm just going to look like a jack off if I don't run a tenth better. Like someone's going to come up to me and be like, oh man, I can't believe this part-time guy, outran you. That they don't remember, I've got 120 Top Fuel wins and 6 national records.
Right.
They're just,
and it's also
living
and those
in that
things.
moment.
Those things are just like lit fuses too. I mean, they're either going or they're not.
Right.
And there's just so much less variability in those cars.
And with track prep and tire shake, you detune these things. And then it's just
here on this show, we've had innumerable people come on here and talk about how hard nitro tuners. Scott Palmer comes to mind most recently. Clay Milliken talking about how people don't understand how hard it is to slow these cars down.
Right.
You know, it's not as easy as like, oh, let's just turn it back a little.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they'll go from 10 on the dial to 9. It's just not at all. That's not how it works.
And I'm not trying to say, oh, Pro Stock cars are the easiest thing in the world to tune.
Right. Of course not.
But I think they have a better handle on adjusting that window of how they can get the car. And I also
just the nature of the beast.
The nature of the beast. But the thing also with the Pro Stock cars, I think the driver can really also, honestly, a little bit with the reaction time, manipulate that a little bit too. You know, of just not being killer, you know, and because it does come for those guys, it comes down to thousandths of a second. So much.
That's a good point, because it seems like it's every weekend we have multiple races decided in Pro Stock by 1,000th, extremely, right. And it's the margins. I mean, it's typically a really, really big deal. J.R. Todd versus what was it, Doug Coletta that year in Virginia. You know, that's kind of a big talked about thing when you see races that are that close in the nitro categories. If Top Fuel is locked up, and before we jump into funny car, well, no, let's do funny car, because this is a really
let's jump into funny car.
So if Top Fuel is locked up, and I do want to real quick, because this is too good of a segue to ignore, right? Shout out, please say that I have this queued up. I do. How about it, guys? Right there. The Capco boys on the cover of Drag Illustrated magazine this month. Speaking about big happenings, Elon, 10 people on the cover. I think this is a first.
That could be a record. I'll have to go back.
New
and
stat category.
You know, as far as in one photo, I think you probably had like a one photo like that. I don't think either 10.
I think we had one photo with the Titan Motorsports guys from Orlando that had something like 5
and the
on
Street
the cover.
Outlaws guys had 5.
And the one thing before we jump out of Top Fuel, I think I feel confident Steve is going to walk away with the championship, but I think that battle between Brittany and Mike Salinas and Justin Ashley is fascinating and so good for the sport, because you have really the prototypes of the 3 most diverse teams in the category, aside from a multi-car team. But you have Brittany Force, former champion. They do not lack for anything on that team. You have Mike Salinas, who, again, big budget, big name tuner, team that's won championships, but he is really racing out of passion. He loves the sport. And then you have, I think, arguably the breakout story of, this season, the Davis Motorsports, Justin Ashley. You bring on Mike Green. The fact that Dustin does the clutch on the car, it's a truly independent team. Their level of success of, they were, one good race a couple races ago from really being in the championship conversation. Right. Worst case, they finished 4th. Most, they could finish as high as 3rd, or even maybe knock on the door, things go right out 2nd. And that would be an amazing accomplishment for such a young team with a new crew chief that is doing everything by themselves. So it's
impressive to do anything with one of these single car teams at this stage in the game is impressive.
That to me is going to be super interesting to just see how those 4 drivers have consistently been since the countdown started. And Justin came out roaring out of the gate at Reading to get right into the mix, going from 7th in there. Those have consistently been the best 4 cars, best 4 dragsters every race of the countdown.
So if I read this correctly, moving into funny car,
yes,
there are 7 drivers I see that mathematically have a chance.
Correct.
Points leader, Ron Capps, Matt Hagan, Cruz Pedregon, J.R. Todd, John Force, Bob Tasca, and Robert Height. Holy cow. I mean, obviously a couple of those are clearly stretches. Robert Height's 173 back, it looks like. Yep. Take us through some of the scenarios. I mean, you mentioned, Elon, that Steve Torrance would have to have a career-defining failure in Pomona to lose the championship. What's it going to take for someone like Ron Capps to win it?
It is just going to take Capps being able to fend off. I mean, he's the one that I think is honestly the most vulnerable, just based on the volatility of how funny cars played out, with big top point cars losing in the first round. I feel it's a little bit like Russian roulette. I mean, you've seen JR go out first round. You've seen Force go out first round. You've seen Hagan go out first round the last couple races. Cruz has gone out first round, but then gets hot, wins the last race. That you're sitting in the staging lanes watching these upsets. And Caps even mentioned it in Vegas. He's seeing all these guys go out in front of him. And that just gets into your head about, oh my, what is happening? What, am I going to be, you just see that trend. And it's like, he said that Guido stuck his head underneath the car and kind of, made a funny comment that really loosened him up because he was already starting to get tense about seeing all this mayhem unfolding in front of him.
So Caps really just needs to go in, win a round, qualify, go around and lock this thing up.
He needs to do basically what he did in Vegas. If he goes in, qualifies really well, and makes to the final round, or even makes to the semis, I don't think there's any way. There's just not enough rounds for the guys behind him to make up.
So what about Matt Hagan? He's somebody, there's a couple here that I want to, and I don't want to,
Sure.
skip over anybody. Obviously, I think that we've talked about this many times in 2021, Elon, that the storyline of John Force, somehow, some way being in contention for a 17th world title, what would that do to his story? Does that keep him racing for another several years? Does that give him the opportunity to ride off into the sunset? We may never know, but what would John Force, for instance, I know that there's a lot of moving parts here, but is it in John Force's mind this weekend as someone who's been in close proximity to this man, a legend of our sport for a long time, in situations such as this? Is this on his radar? Has he
100%? Knowing John, what he's going to try to do, they're going to try to be number one qualifier. Hope that those guys, Caps, Hagan, stumble a little bit in qualifying, which isn't out of the realm of possibility.
No.
And then he has the advantage of having Robert at his disposal. Those guys are going to try to get an early round matchup with Caps and Hagan, whatever they need to try to do to get those guys out in the first round. And if they can get those guys out in the first round, then you're going to run into a situation where in 2013, when Force won the championship in Vegas, he was about 85 points behind Hagan-ish, and Hagan went out in the first round. And because of my point projections, I could see, Hagan went out in the first round, and then I literally just looked to the end of my points and saw, oh man, if Force, wins, he's going to have enough of a points lead over Hagan. And I guess Hagan was behind him, but the way it worked out is Hagan went out early. Force put enough points on him to clinch in Vegas. That's going to be the same kind of scenario. Caps and Hagan go out in the first round. Force can get, another 120 points. That could put him right in position to do that. And the minute that door opens, it's like Michael Jordan. You give him a little bit of a glimpse of what he needs to do, he will find a way to do it.
It's funny because I feel like, and I don't mean to make this a John Force thing, but when the opportunity presents itself, I think you have to talk about the man. He's a living legend. Sure. And you see that in him. And I think we've seen, even if he doesn't win the championship, I just want to get kind of a agree, disagree type of thing. Even if he does not win the championship, his 17th overall this year, Elon, do you believe that John Force kind of put on a legendary performance? I would argue that he did. I mean, I know that there are people that take issue with his driving or perhaps, things changing as he ages, but I've seen a dude pull out all the stops. I've seen a guy try everything to win, and it seemed to have worked a little bit.
You're seeing the cagiest of cagey veterans go into every bag he has in his tricks. Deep staging first against some guys to throw them off. He is going to do everything in his arsenal to give himself a chance to win. And his arsenal is the most massive of anyone. I mean, the only people that I would even put in the same category would be Cruz, honestly, that has the bag of tricks to get underneath somebody's skin to make you think, oh, this guy's, could pull something or he might not pull something. And he just seems to know exactly the right time to put the top bulb out on somebody or, and it's all, you use terms like hang somebody out or slow stage or quick stage, or whatever. To me, that's just all gamesmanship.
Yeah, that's just being a veteran.
I have no problem with anybody. I mean, Courtney did it in her first race against Force and Phoenix. They're in the first round. They both pre-stage, and then Courtney just sits on Force. And I'm watching, I'm going, I don't know why more people don't do this. And literally, she sits on him, and then he finally stages, and then she just jumps right in and just beat him. And as soon as they got to the top end, Force said, was something going on? Was something the matter? Why didn't you blah, 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 blah? And Courtney's like, I knew you liked to stage.
Right.
So I was
That's
like,
awesome.
I'll make you
That's an awesome story.
Wait. And I'm listening to the story, and I'm like, why don't more people do that to Force? So many people defer to him, and there's no reason to. You can respect the guy, but you don't have to, and that's, again, there's the sportsmanship level. And I've always been fascinated by how, particularly the nitro cars, they understand, this guy likes to do longer burnouts. So he will, we have to start our car later to balance it out. So we're both staging at the same time.
Yeah, they're getting it. He's in their head.
Top Fuel or funny car owner of all time for one season, because I would not give one F about any of that.
A question, and this is, I don't want to derail us because we got a short amount of time to cover a lot, but no, this is an important thing, and we're gonna you've now cemented yourself as a regular. I apologize. I hope you're free on Wednesday afternoons because you're cementing yourself as a regular. What do you think? Why is it? We had a really long conversation earlier in the green room. Mike, Murder, Tundra, and myself, just kind of, and Josh Hatchett, just talking about people are. If an NBA player knows his opponent likes to go right, you don't let him go right.
No,
I mean, you literally
just driving him to the left.
Yes, you build your whole program around not letting him do what he likes to do. Why do you think that is such a controversial stance to take when it comes to drag racing?
Because if you don't provide them a chance to race, you don't have anybody to race. You're locking out 50% of your really you're locking 100% of your competition, but 50% of the people that are participating. So, if you shut down one guy on a basketball team, that's 20% of the team. You can do ISO, but I think that's just the mindset of you need someone to race. So
that's interesting because you got to give and take a little bit is what you're saying. I mean, you can't go up there and just say, I'm never going to ever stage, first.
Right. And I think you saw it, you got right up in the edge in the semifinals when Steve was racing Justin. Justin was having some issues in the pits. You don't really know how much that's been communicated to the other team, but then they come up and they're working on the clutch housing or whatever. They're still screwing that thing on, and Steve is in the water box.
Yeah.
That's, again, great sportsmanship on Steve Torrance's part. But he's got 3 championships. He wants to race the guy. He wants to be all, but at a certain point you're like, hey man, I can only wait so long. And then NHRA is going to say, you got to start your car, and then you can politely wait and ignore that guy. So I just think
we've seen, right?
It's all within the rules. I mean, there's clearly going over the line, and then there is maximizing your advantages and amplifying their disadvantages within the rule book. And I think that is where you really see a veteran. Like I think about when Michael Jordan first came on the scene, he could jump over anybody, and he uses athleticism. Same with Kobe Bryant. Same with a lot of these guys. LeBron, we're seeing it
absolutely
now. And then as they learn the game, the mental aspect of it becomes more than 50% of their game. And then you got Michael Jordan with turnaround jumpers, and Kobe, the same thing. LeBron
developing a 3-point shot or passing. Yeah.
And so it's, to me, seeing that evolution of someone go from just brute force, no pun intended, to being the wily veteran that knows that their physical skills are diminished, but can still compete with the young guy. It may only be for one run.
Right. That's all you need.
That is what I love to see in any kind of sport, even in drag racing.
I just would love to see us remove the stigma of being like
everything is a crime in drag racing.
Everything's
That's
a crime.
I said earlier.
But here's the thing. People in drag racing, more than any sport I've worked in, everybody, for the most part, everybody wants to be liked.
You're right. That's exactly
when Jordan came in, you had the Pistons, the bad boys, and they are bludgeoning those guys for 2 years. I mean, they're like tackling them, and they were hated. Right. They were hated by the league. They were hated by all the other teams. They were for sure hated by the Bulls. I mean, Jordan didn't let Isaiah get on the Dream Team because he hated him so much. But
shout out to The Last Dance.
Oh, yeah.
What a great documentary.
But our sport, particularly even force, but so many people do want to be universally liked.
And sponsors play into it too.
And a little bit of that. But, no one wants to wear the black hat. Let's
jump to Pro Stock Motorcycle, Wes, and then go to Pro Stock and bring Richard in when we dive into Pro Stock, so that he can just dive right into the topic that we're going to cover.
You want to do bikes now and then come back to Pro Stock?
Yeah, let's do bikes now. Pro Stock Motorcycle headed into the NHRA Finals. Three-headed monster. Yeah, go ahead, Elon.
It's Steve Johnson's sentimental favorite. It would be, I think, a crusher for Matt and Steve if Angel won the championship, because it would be kind of like Vance and Hines gets the magic back.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Matt Smith's confidence level right now is through the roof. I think even with, not having the Vegas that he wanted, I think that team has so many assets with Scotty and Angie as not necessarily blockers, but just assassins for him.
Yeah.
That they can get Steve or Angel. But I mean, Angel's got Eddie and Andrew. Steve's the one guy that's just out there on an island. The thing he has going for him is he's got Larry Dixon in his corner and he's hungry. And
how cool is that? Larry Dixon crewing on
it's
a
crazy.
It's
bike.
Just
it's
what's so great about our sport. But that one is the most compelling, where I think you could get. That's the one where I think the final at Pomona could be for the championship.
And they're the tightest of the three of any of these categories, the top three.
Yeah, and it's all.
And Matt Smith's got to be pretty comfortable, as uncomfortable of a situation as this obviously is. Right. He's been in these nail biters before. He's had to go to Vegas and get business done, take care of business. Excuse me. So I want to be. This isn't completely unfamiliar territory for him. I do agree with your point. We're obviously big fans. Angie Smith was on the cover of our Women of Power issue earlier this year, but it was it would be an incredible kind of feel-good story for Steve Johnson to seal the deal on this one.
Seal the deal. You look at all the times, going back to even like when he won Indy and they didn't get credit for winning Indy until like 10 days later.
Yes.
Yeah. He's like Charlie Brown trying to kick field goals.
Right.
Like the ball's going to be out there and then you're just going to snatch the ball away from him. And I think, we talk a lot about mental fortitude and mental health and things like that. So I think it would be really impressive for Angel to win, because she has been battling, just being distracted and lack of confidence and things like that. So for her to hunker down and get to that place and come out on top would be a pretty spectacular achievement on her part.
I think all three of these stories are awesome stories.
Yeah, sure.
I'm excited to tell these stories no matter which one happens.
The one that's obviously a focal point of our conversation today, and this will kind of wrap up our segment with you, Elon. I really appreciate it. I do want to remind everybody here that the Wes Buck Show is brought to you each and every week by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seat belts to fire suits, gloves, and blankets. All 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure you tell them your friends at the Wes Buck Show sent you. Before we wrap up, we've got to talk about what's been something of an elephant in the proverbial drag racing room for the last few days. And before we're joined by the one and only Richard Freeman, I want to ask you, Elon, take us through the point scenarios for before we check in with Richard. I'd love to kind of get educated on what are some of the scenarios that are at play and what I believe to be the best stories that have existed in pro level drag racing the last 3 seasons have been in Pro Stock, in my opinion. The most talked about things, the coolest things. So take us through what could go on in Pomona.
I would, going into Vegas, it was, Greg Anderson's championship to lose. I mean, a good Vegas race would have pretty much given him Pomona as a coronation event. But, again, strategy comes into play. The elite guys got a matchup that was favorable, and they took Greg out in the first round, and then Erica goes to the final to get, within basically one round Dallas Glenn, who's a KB guy, was able to fend her off with a Herculean effort on the tree. So it's I'd say it's really a 2-car race with an outside shot for Dallas if Erica can go out, early in the first round, and then Greg can go out early. But it's going to be fascinating. I mean, to me, it's the Lakers Celtics. It's Yankees Red Sox. It's, pick your, huge rivalry attitude of these guys. They don't like each other, and there's nothing wrong with that. They want to beat each other every time they pull up, whether it's first round, second round. You look at the ladder, they are looking at opportunities to beat each other and win championships. And that's, the thing that I also love about it is this is a rivalry that is already getting into its second generation. It is not just Greg and Erica or Greg and Jeg Jr. It is now Dallas and Kyle Koretsky and Troy Coughlin Jr. and Erica. And it's, it's one of those things that these guys have come into this organization, and it's like, hey, this is all great, well and good. We'll go drink a beer with these guys later. But when we're on the track, we hate those guys. We will do whatever we need to do to beat those guys.
Don't you love it, man? I mean, to be honest with
Absolutely.
you, Elon, that's what I've been, when people got up, and we'll obviously discuss a lot of this with Richard directly here momentarily, but when this whole thing kind of popped off a couple, 2, 3, and this is obviously something that's been going on for years. It's a rival that's nothing new. But when that first time that Greg Anderson, Greg and Jason Line attempted to kind of lay back in qualifying at the NHRA Finals in Pomona to try to get Erica in round 1. Obviously, history knows knows the story. It didn't go as planned, but I really did. It wasn't a well-received thing for the most part, but I had to kind of tip my cap to him because that takes some balls. I mean, it takes some balls to want to race someone like Erica Enders, to want to just get that. I was impressed by it. And I think is no matter what anybody wants to say about how they feel about the ladder strategy, as I saw Billy Carroll, a longtime friend of the show, friend of Drag Illustrated, Comp Cam Zone, I think in qualifying specifically, that strategy is fair game. I think if you want to try to get someone knocked out, I honestly think maybe we're going to see more of it.
And I don't have a problem. I mean, you call it team orders, call it whatever you want to call it. I don't care. At this level, it is a team sport. If you're going to have that attitude and call yourself a sports fan, then every time someone hits a sacrifice fly,
exactly,
or doesn't run out a double play, or pick your steps out of bounds, takes a knee, whatever, then that's all part of the gamesmanship. I think
we talked about this. Every sport, this happens in every sport, whether you're aware of it or not. And if everyone on that team is good with that decision, then that's why they are teammates. That's why we have teams. Right.
And it happens in other motorsports, and it's just openly embraced in Formula One. That whole F1 Netflix show, I've watched 3 or 4 episodes, and they just talk about
nonstop.
This guy's going to win. This guy's
everything's about the grid.
That gets to win.
Well, I tell you what, Elon, it has been incredibly insightful. I appreciate your time more than you know. And again, I think whether you liked it or not, you're in the mix as a rotating guest. We'd love to have you on more frequently.
Sorry about that, Elon. Maybe you could take my spot a couple weeks. I'll get a couple weeks.
Mike would be so butthurt if we kicked him off and let you take his spot.
We'll kick what? Me and Elon
will came on as whatever Billy Meyer, because he used my computer earlier for the Fall Nationals, which thank you guys very much for all the covers, the Stampede of Speed.
No problem.
Yeah, man, thank you for having us. That was
next
awesome.
time I'm going to come on, I'm just going to come on as I almost thought about it. After I saw Murder T, I actually thought about changing my name to Grand Larceny Q to just.
You should. I like it.
We should develop
Mike would cry if we kicked him off.
Mike would cry if he got kicked off. If you replaced him, Well, thank you so much,
Great,
Elon. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the one and only Elon Warner. We'll see you in Pomona. Thank you so much for all you do, brother.
Thanks so much, man. Talk to you later.
Yep, thank you.
All right, guys. Well, before I do want to get one more script read in, it's important we take care of our sponsors here, guys. We got to pay the bills, right? It's just part of the deal. Remember, friends and racers, the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by our friends at Elite HP. Logo on the screen right behind me. How about that timing? I couldn't have pulled that off if I wanted to. The world leader in used race cars, racing engines, parts, and tools. Located in Fort Worth, Texas, Elite HP is operated by real racers who speak the tribal language of drag racing. You call them up, you have a question, they're going to have an answer for you. They're going to know someone who does. Whether you're looking for a turnkey race operation, a new truck, a new trailer, a transmission, a battery charger, our friends at Elite HP got you covered. Check out their entire inventory at www.elitehp.com. And Mike, JT, the moment has arrived. I just shared it on my personal Facebook. I'm sure that we're going to see the numbers go through the roof like we're bringing one of these street outlaw guys on here. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, a celebrated team owner in the NHRA world, fielder of as many as 6, 7, 8 teams at any given time in Pro Stock. Let's give it up for Wynnewood, Oklahoma's own Richard Freeman. What's going on, buddy?
The Dippin' King.
Just sitting here listening to all you guys.
Running our mouths.
Rolling his eyes, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, you
no, it's all
goddamn.
Oh, no. It's, man, it really was. It was great to have Elon, honestly, on to preface this because he's got so much like college sports and pro sports experience that he's seen situations like you find yourself in with your team, Richard. He's seen these situations play out in every different arena. And I kind of like that he's able to, what's the word, to normalize this type of strategy and things. I mean, I think it's safe to say it's no secret. It's been the talk of town. And I think a great thing, honestly, when it comes to drawing interest and bringing people to the sport of drag racing and get people talking, your guys' outing at the recently completed NHRA Dodge SRT Nationals in Las Vegas. The tour rolled out to Sin City to settle some scores, and you found yourself embroiled in a little bit of controversy. I'm sure you'll tell us that you're not paying attention at all, but I know you have heard a little bit about it. I think I'll set the stage. We saw some gamesmanship in qualifying, right? Some effort to lay back a couple of the elite motorsports cars, as we just talked, in an effort to get some first-round matchups. One of those first-round matchups paid off, which not to derail us, but I shot TJ Coughlin, Troy Coughlin Jr. a text, Woody a text, Dion, everybody involved with that young man. When he took out Greg Anderson in the first round, it shocks me that so much focus has been on what happened after that, because that is an iconic moment for that young man that he will be married to. He will always have the first round in Vegas. No matter what happens in his career in the future, when his team needed him to take out one of the best to ever do it, by God, he went up there and did it. It was an incredible thing. Later in the race, however, there was a moment where it was, clear that TJ made the decision to essentially wave the white flag semifinal round against your driver, Erica Enders, 4-time world champion. In my opinion, the GOAT, the best to ever do it. Just take us through kind of how this deal came to be, Richard. I mean, you run a tight ship over there. You guys are all family. Everybody hangs out together. All the crew chiefs are in the lounge together. How did you find yourself in a situation where this came about?
Well, first of all, it was a full-blown team effort going into Vegas. We knew what we had to do. I believe that the KB guys had done that the previous years, and to first and foremost, the whole deal is out of respect for their program. Greg Anderson, Dallas Glenn, Kyle Koretsky, the Kramers, Matt Hartford, all of them, some of which have raced with us before. And one thing that Elon said, just there from our standpoint, no hatred at all with their program. As a matter of fact, I respect them so deep to be on the same stage with Greg Anderson was a dream of mine. And I know Erica feels the same way. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about my team is exactly what it is, and it's a team effort. Every one of those guys within my program we all got together, and all the things that transpired were part of a team effort. And I can't say enough about TJ Coughlin, Aaron Stanfield, newly added Christian Quadra and his family to our program, Marty Robertson, Bo Butner coming, and all the stuff that's in social media and the people talking and the bitching and moaning. For me, it is what it is, and I don't really care. I am about my family, which it includes everybody that's under those awnings. Wes, it's about you. It's about it's just not that big a deal to me. We're not curing cancer out here. We're racing. It is a team sport, and Elon said that, and I believe that my program is just that. And some people go, some people come, but at the end of the day, it's about everybody under those canopies. And
Richard, I think one of the things that have people up in arms, and I think I'm going to have no choice but to come out and ask you. And I told you when we talked yesterday, I didn't want to talk on the phone because I didn't want to have this conversation and then have a fake conversation. If we're going to have this show be what I want it to be and be what it's becoming, we got to have honest conversations. The sport of drag racing needs it. The NHRA needs these things to get aired out. Did you walk into your pits and tell those guys to lose so Erica could win? I mean, there's a difference between.
No, that's the answer.
So Richard Freeman, because I know that one of the things that needs to be aired out is that people seem to think that a team collectively making a decision to dive into a strategy. Here's how we're going to try to win this deal because we have one car and from our team that's in contention. Here's how we're going to make sure this trophy comes home to us. That's dramatically different than you walking into the pits and saying, hey guys, let's have a meeting. Whoever faces Erica needs to lose. That never happened.
Absolutely not.
I mean, and I think do you agree that that's the difference? I mean, this conversation, I don't think you would be proud of that though. I really don't. I don't think if I don't think you would ever do that.
Again, I wouldn't. And the other part of it is if you're a true team, right? You shouldn't have to say that.
True.
Nor do anything about it. And I will tell you, I have a team. I have, in my opinion, 3 of the best drivers to step behind the wheel of a pro stock. One, to date, has proven to be the best to ever step foot in a pro stock car with the amount of things, and I don't like to say she because she don't want to be known as a girl, but for 8 years that she's drove for me, we have had amazing times as a group. We have done amazing things, and nothing that happened in Las Vegas and nothing that happened, it doesn't define who we are. When I get off this show with you, just so you know, I'm going to a deer stand. And I'm not going to think one more minute about none of it. I'm going to go and I'm going to hunt and I'm going to come home and I'm going to have dinner and I'm going to go to bed. And all the people that like to key up and talk and run their mouth, listen, it ain't something new. It ain't something that hadn't been done. Whatever's happened, it's been done by every team out there. I had the same conversation with Tony Pedregon a while ago that got heated at times. I don't dislike Tony Pedregon, but him of all people to be on national television flapping his mouth about whatever it was, hell, he's one of them. You know what he did? Blame John Force. He did it to me on the phone and did it when he was racing. At the end of the day, it's different when you sign the back of the check instead of the front of the check, spending millions of dollars to win championships. And that's what our team's about. And whoever don't like it can, to be real honest with you, can kiss my ass. I don't care.
I think, I honestly have a hard time arguing with you. I really do. I see it. And when we were having our kind of pre-show meeting, it's like in no other type of sport is it unusual. I mean, this happens all the time. Like if you're in the NBA playoffs, you kind of tank at the end of the season to make sure, because you want to play a favorable matchup, a team that's got an injury, right? Or something like this. You've seen teams tank to alter their position in the draft. I mean, it's not totally out of this isn't insane. This isn't a new thought. And when you table the fact that this isn't a demand that you made of your group, this was something that came to you, from what I understand, not from you, from other people that I've talked to. I said that this was proposed to you as something that they intended to do, because they'd arrived at that on their own accord. Because I would just hate, I don't know. I don't think seeing TJ Coughlin vilified is fair. I don't think seeing Erica vilified is fair. Think of all they've done.
Erica Enders and my team have proven their worth. And Erica Enders don't want to win a championship by being something given to her. And she run her car to the stripe at every lap, just like KB did in 19. And I'm going to say this: Greg Anderson has never said a word about it. And
very interesting.
I don't believe he would. I'm going to tell you, and I respect their team. Dallas Glenn deserves the Rookie of the Year 100%. He's a great driver, a great competitor, as is Greg, as is Jason, as is all of them over there. And we respect them. Our decision and what we did was we wanted it within our team's control, not someone else. Good or bad, let the cars fall where they may. And, you have to understand, Greg is very, very fast. Faster than any car on the property at most events. He's qualified, I think, on the pole 11 times. Well, 11 times on the pole means that first round has been, I'm not saying a buy, but it's been very good for him. And
yes, so that makes sense.
Listen, it's just a game. And it's just as much as racing is a game. It's no different than in the finals. We pulled up and Dallas's car wouldn't start. I stopped Erica Enders. We stopped. We stopped the engines. We cut it off, backed up, and we'll do that every time. We race those guys heads up every time, and always will. No games, no bullshit.
Talk about the teamwork that exists, because this is the thing that people have to wrap their heads around. If we're going to be upset when people operate as a team now, why aren't we pitching a fit when cars are teamed up in the first place, right? I mean, you've kind of made an example, I think, out of how you have your pits set up, right? I mean, you've talked about this before. It's been a selling point for your program that you've got 4 cars out here and all the crew chiefs work together, and everybody collaborates. And so if that's okay, why isn't this okay? I mean, just to be honest, that happens.
Is it a team sport or is it not? Correct. And at the end of the day, one of the things, and you can ask anybody that's a part of our program, from Aaron Stanfield's program to Jeg's program to Erica's program, to anybody that's in that group, we don't part the waters. And that's the reason our program has been so successful. And, again, I'm just telling you, I don't care what people say. I don't care what, I'm not being mean. I don't care what you say. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care about the social media shit. I don't care, because what I care about is my people, my customers, my family, and how we do things. And we sleep fine. Okay. There's no issues. Erica and TJ, yes, they've been on the hot seat, and I feel sorry for TJ, but I'm going to tell you something right now. The Jegs family and TJ Coughlin are my people, and they always will be, regardless of anything. And Erica, my people, my family. Bo Butner, my people, my family, whether he's under my tent or under KB's tent. And that's the difference between a Richard Freeman and many others out there. Listen, we have a lot of good things going. I've got, next year looking at 8 cars.
I was just getting ready to ask. I mean, by my count, 3 Quadra cars, 1 Bo Butner, 1 Marty Robertson, 1 Aaron Stanfield, 1 TJ, and of course 1 Erica. That's 8 Pro Stock cars that you could potentially field in 2022. Yes, considering all that's gone on, how good does that feel? I mean, it's a COVID year. I mean, that's incredible.
It's fantastic. And then you add Lyle Barnett and our pro modified team, who we've struggled. Proline has been they're the KB of
absolutely Pro Mod,
right? And so we've worked, we've struggled, we've blew motors up. I've had rods hit me in the shin. I've had Erica on fire. I've had Steve Matusik upside down. All this stuff, right? But we keep fighting, and we fight together, and we let the outside world do what they want, say what they want. We do it our way, and that's just the way it is. And if somebody don't like it, don't watch. Don't be a fan of mine. I don't care.
Don't you think it's safe to say that we need people? I mean, this is a common approach in most every other walk of life, especially like show business. I mean, you kind of need people to love and to hate. I mean, it's the thing that I'm kind of recognizing in all of this is that the people talking about it the most seem to be the people who hate you the most or who despise. I mean, those are the people that are wrapped up with it. So it's kind of interesting because they're causing it. I mean, they're doing this themselves, right? I mean, they're the ones that are so bent out of shape, yet they're the one driving the bus on this conversation seemingly endlessly. It's interesting.
And I mean, to be honest with you, I like it. I'm glad that people are listening. Pro Stock has been at the forefront. You said it won't go for a couple of years, and you know, at the end of the day, we got great sponsors behind us, great partners, and we're glad to be doing what we're doing. And if Greg Anderson wins a championship through us, or Dallas Glenn were to win a championship, I promise you, and they know it, I'll be the first one to the finish line to congratulate them. That's how we do things. And from there, I don't care. I've done everything in my life with the people that are around me the hard way. Nobody's given me anything. And you know, I tell this to NHRA all the time. You know, they want to talk about being entertainers. I'm not an entertainer. You know why I'm not an entertainer? I don't get paid like an entertainer. The program that we as a whole are involved in, the Torrances, myself, we pay to entertain the fans. How crazy is that? It's just like,
it's a conversation for like, I mean, we will spend the rest of the week trying to sort this out.
Right? Ray Skillman said it to me best one day. He said, you know, what we do, here's how crazy it is. It'd be just like Tom Brady showing up on Sunday morning and having to buy a ticket so he could go play football. It don't make sense. But at the end of the day, my attitude about it is I do this because I love it. And I also love the people. I have a lot of people out there doesn't, you know, for example, competitors of ours, the McGahays. Listen, there's no love lost there, but I guarantee you, if you ask Chris McGahay or Lester and said, hey, if you called Richard, would he lend a hand? They would not say no. Guaranteed. You know why? Because I've done it. And vice versa. Same goes with KB. We have yes, when we want to beat their ass, right? Just like they do us. But
it's a professional rivalry.
That's right. We have a respect for them that is so deep, it's unbelievable.
Elon called it Lakers Celtics, and I think that is such a great analogy because it's two titans at the height of their game, you know, at the top of their game, going head to head. And personally, like as a media person and as an entertainer, that's basically my job at this point. We need more of this stuff. I mean, as much as we can get. I mean, I'm watching these races, hoping somebody gets mad, hoping somebody says something off color, because this is what our sport needs to get to where we want to go. We've got to have these moments. Kind of closing notes, Richard, and I appreciate your time here today. Don't want to keep you from the deer stand, but how proud are you? I've been screwing that up for 3 episodes. How proud are you of where Pro Stocks arrived? It was only a few short years ago that we were right here on this show, kind of worried that it might be over. You know, the car counts were down. The 24 race schedule was not working out. Yourself, along with a handful of owners, other team owners, you know, pressed the NHRA to reduce the schedule. You got some significant pushback from some of the other racers about that. But here we are a few years into the 18 race schedule, and Pro Stock, in my opinion, without question, is the most stable, best category that NHRA has in their Camping World Series. I mean, how do you feel about where the class is right now?
sometimes we take for granted. And I had a hand in that, along with the guys at KB and along with everyone else that runs Pro Stock. And I couldn't be more proud of the whole class in how we do things. There's one thing about it. We may not agree with each other, but we pulled together and we did something that had to be done. And our class is as strong as it could ever be. And, you know, thank you to all of the competitors who have bought in and stuck with it and went through some really hard times. You know, both Greg and Jason and I, we put cars out there when we didn't get nothing for it. And those times are changing, and it's fabulous. We got some really good programs out there. You know, you got the Quadras who with Frank Iaconio is going to be doing their power, and the stuff that's going on is unheard of.
So is that a situation where you're helping your engine programs, helping that engine program type of situation?
And that's what I say. There's things going on, Wes, right now that are unheard of in this class. And that is Frank Iaconio being in my shop and sharing information, vice versa. And we're building a program that benefits everyone. And hopefully others come and others, whoever it may be. But what's going on in our class right now is amazing. And again, I can't say enough about our teammates, our people that are part of our program, and understand when I say our, that's exactly what it is. I have many people who have a shared interest in what we do, and we all pull the same direction. And we love what we do. And again, thank you to all of our teammates for buying into the way we run things, and it works. It works really well, and we couldn't be more proud.
The proof's in the pudding, obviously. Here's Royce Lee. I help Kyle and Jake a lot with the motors. Everybody knows that.
He does nothing. Just so you know.
From my vantage point, he's pretty much the critical piece of the puzzle.
He sure is.
It's I got a couple things, because while we have you and you're on a roll, I do want to ask. You said something earlier that I agree with, and I kind of stirred the pot last week. I think it is a criminal act if Dallas Glenn doesn't win Rookie of the Year this year. I appreciate some of the other things that have happened, but if he doesn't win, I see it as a tragedy. What's your take? I mean, Dallas, you mentioned him earlier. What an incredible job this young man done. Unheard of in Pro Stock to have a debut season like this, a rookie season like this. Where's your stance on Dallas as a driver and whether or not he wins the Rookie of the Year award?
Dallas Glenn deserves every accolade that's out there for him. He has shown his prowess on the starting line, and he is a fabulous driver from what everything I can see. And he is a force to be reckoned with, whether it's this year, next year, however long somebody wants to pay that kid. In fact, if Dallas, if you're watching, or anybody at KB, and he loses his ride, we'll sure take him. Listen, there's not anyone over there that aren't respected, and he deserves that Rookie of the Year accolade 100%. And we'll be the first ones to vote. If we could vote, we would be pushing for him.
Well, 100%. I'll say it that I got a vote. I get a vote, and I voted for Dallas. I think it's faux pas. I'm probably going to get in trouble for talking about who I voted for. Maybe. I don't really care, but I mean, because it's I said it here, and I'm not trying to stir shit, but I do believe if he doesn't win it, it is the NHRA is simply saying that that Pro Stock's drivers aren't treated the same as Top Fuel drivers. Yeah. I mean, that's literally there's no other way to interpret it.
And let's talk about that. Josh Hart, who's in the running, he's done an incredible job. And I watched that. I'm friends with the Torrances, and we're rooting for Steve to get this deal done. But Josh Hart deserves the right to be in the talking. But if it's performance related and your scorecard, Dallas Glenn wins. period. There's no question about it. And again, we like Dallas Glenn. We appreciate him being there. We appreciate his sponsor with Rad Torque Converters and all that stuff. Listen, we need them all, and we want them all. And
it looks like we're going to have them. I mean, Pro Stock, I mean, you got the Carusos coming out. You got, I mean, the fact that people are leaving a class like Pro Mod, which, you know, everybody thought, you know, all indications were that was the next big thing. I mean, you look at where things are now. I mean, it would appear to me people are coming out of the woodwork to run Pro Stock. It's really exciting, man. I mean, it's going to make next year is going to be fantastic. Speaking of exciting, what's and we'll let you go after this one, Richard. What's your take on what's the strategy, or what can you tell us about the strategy headed into Pomona? I mean, do you guys, you know, want to try to get an early round matchup? You're going to let things play out? I mean, what kind of sneak preview can you give us to the World Finals?
Buddy, I don't know. We haven't really talked about it as a team, and we will. We'll talk about it before qualifying in Pomona, and we'll see what everyone agrees to, not Richard Freeman. Again, and you again ask any of them. That's what we did going into Las Vegas as a team, and we'll do the same in Pomona. And, you know, if people don't like it, I guess root for the other side. I don't know. But we're going to do what's best for our program and not what's best for somebody punching a keyboard.
I said it was the last thing, but this is the last thing. With Erica Enders behind the wheel, I support your argument. I've argued she's without question the greatest female race car driver of all time. And when I think it comes to Pro Stock, I think she's in the conversation as the greatest of all time, regardless, man, woman, whatever, animal, alien. She's likely the best to ever do it. How good do you feel having her in your hot rod in this situation where it's likely going to come down to her having to make the difference?
Well, I've said this since 2014, and I'll say it in 2021. I couldn't pick a better person to be behind the wheel of one of our cars than her. And, you know, she puts up with a lot of shit from us and other people. And at the end of the day, couldn't be more proud of her in her accolades, along with our team. And we're going to take it however the cards fall, and we're gonna roll into 22, and we're gonna keep doing the same thing. And she's again, in my opinion, the best to ever step foot in one of those cars, and she's proved that. She's shown it, and now we have new ones like Dallas Glenn, like TJ Coughlin, like Aaron Stanfield. These guys are just they're amazing, and they're amazing to watch. And you know, I like to drive those cars too. I tell the people ask me all the time, when are you going to drive again? Why? Why would I drive? I don't want to get my ass whipped by them, because that's exactly what would happen. They're that good. And yes, it comes, you know, like Dallas, you know, I've heard all the stuff. Well, he just listen, he may have the best equipment money can buy, but he's the somebody that's got to drive it. And he does. And
there's no class where human involvement is more significant than in Pro Stock. I mean, listen, you can have a number one car. You could give, I don't want to name names, but there are people you could give Erica's car and they won't be able to qualify it.
100%. They would have a tough time. Yeah. And so to answer your question, super proud of everything. And she is amazing. And as is the rest of our group. From Mark Ingersoll, Tim Freeman, Jake Harrison, Kyle Bates. Listen, they put in so much time to make this stuff a reality, and it just means so much to me to get to watch that and sit back and look at things that we dreamed up as kids to being able to do, and couldn't be more proud. And you know, we're going to go try to finish it off.
Thanks, Richard. I appreciate the time, man. Be careful in that deer stand. I don't want to climb up in the air at all these days.
Wow.
So I'll hurt my back. I'll fall down, and I don't know. I want to shoot a deer sometime. I've never done it. I've never gone.
You can be like me. I shoot at them. So that's just what
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Richard Freeman, Elite Motorsports Zone. Holy crap, man. I think we pretty well, what a deal that was, right? I don't think we could have asked for that to go much better.
No question where you stand with Richard. We know that, but it's great. Well, I think it's awesome to have that the uncandid or the candid nature, and for that to be accepted. We're seeing that more and more. And Richard knows he's got everyone behind him. He's got his sponsors behind him, and that's what they want from him. And it's what the fans want. It's what we want to hear. And there's nothing wrong with saying it like it is and being candid about it. So
we need it. I mean, the sport needs more and more of it. These are where sound bites come from. It's funny. If you want to, everybody likes to compare like payouts and everything, the NHRA to NFL or whatever. You know how much money the NFL brought in last year? Like $14 billion. That's 200% more than NHRA brought in at like $100 million. So I mean, there's no comparison.
It's a much smaller deal.
But
we're closer to the fire. We talked about that earlier. We're just closer to the fire. That's why everybody's more sensitive to this stuff. But nothing wrong with that. And I almost forgot about the Rookie of the Year voting. I panicked for a minute that I had missed the deadline, and I just cast my vote.
Wow, good man.
I think people dig that though. Being honest and laying it out there, or the whole. If you don't like me. F you, go over there and root for somebody, because over here we don't give a shit. I love it.
I think it's fantastic, man.
And what the funniest thing he said was that Greg hasn't said anything to him about it. I know. If you saw Greg Anderson's top end interview after the loss to Troy Coughlin, you would think, I'm sure he was dying inside, but kudos to those guys. He said the old man behind the wheel or something like that didn't get it done, referring to himself, takes it in stride and goes. He gets it. We've talked about that a lot. I mean, that dude is the OG of the class at this point. He gets it. He knows it. He set the playbook for it in 2019.
Do you think Richard's been going to anger management or something though? I mean, like, I think they're
too calm, right?
Like only like 9
he's
cuss
sitting
words
right next door to a 30-some
thousand
thousand square foot medical marijuana grow facility. There's hard telling. But
I need to move
in the air.
I do wonder, there was a couple things that I thought stood out amongst that whole thing. One, we aren't talking enough about how big of a deal it is to have all these new cars show up in Pro Stock. I mean, that is such a huge change of pace. Competitive cars. Yeah. The fact that there's a chance that one team could field 8 cars in 2022, that's insane. That's a really big deal for the NHRA that I think we need to, maybe spend some time talking about a little bit more here in the future.
Hey, check it out. Yeah. Hey, Royce has got a hell of an anger management class. What's it? We need a website or phone number, Royce, so people can sign up.
I should take Royce drinking with me again.
I think it's like www.letsfightforit.com.
www.nottoday.com.
Yeah, nottoday.com. Yeah, that's actually probably a genius business model. Like how to just stay mad. Log on to nottoday.com.
I can sell those not today.
Holy crap, guys.
All day long, I think.
Well, hey, guys, we're headed into the final hour of the Wes Buck Show. I want to tip my cap to everybody that supports this show each and every Wednesday afternoon. It means the world to us. I said earlier that it's fantastic to have these big name guests on, Elon Warner, Richard Freeman, Sean Bellemeur. I mean, it's a fantastic thing for us to shine a light on these guys and be guilty by association. But the most important guest we have every Wednesday is you. The viewers, the fans, the people that engage us, the people that have an opinion, that drive the conversation. And I just want you all to know how much we appreciate your involvement. I want to remind you, click like, click subscribe, click share, help us spread the message. I should have said that earlier in the show, but your involvement and your contribution, what you can do to help the Wes Buck Show and help the team here at Drag Illustrated is click share. Help us spread what I believe to be the gospel of drag racing, put our sport in front of more folks. It makes such a huge difference, and we appreciate it each and every time you do it. Beyond that, word of mouth. I'm hearing more and more people tell me that they had a friend tell them about this show on Wednesday afternoons. So, hey, they always say the best advertising is word of mouth. I challenge you, please, each and every one of you, tell someone about this show, send them an email, send them a link, text it to them, get someone else to join us next Wednesday and be a part of what I think is the drag racing conversation. I also want to give a shout out to our friends at Stroud, Elite HP, Sand Haulers of America. You notice new logo on the screen behind me. Of course, everybody at... who did I leave out? Flow Racing, of course, who I do want to remind everyone is streaming live this weekend's World Cup Finals at Maryland International Raceway. Jason Miller's huge production, one of the biggest independent drag races on the planet Earth. And while we queue up Sean Bellemeur, let's cut to the commercial here real quick and remind everybody to log on to flowracing.com/drag illustrated and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, introducing the one and only reigning, defending NHRA Top Alcohol Funny Car Champion, not once, not twice, 3 times, as well as the Midwest Drag Racing Series Funny Car Champion, back-to-back, 2 straight, the one and only Sean Bellemeur. Thank you so much for joining us, Sean. What's going on, man? Are you at SEMA?
I sure am. I found me a hallway with nobody in it. Hopefully, it won't be too noisy here. I do want to know, how the hell am I supposed to follow up Richard Freeman?
Yeah, man,
that's hard to do.
I gotta tell you,
apologize.
Pro Stock went up on my list like 10 points right there. That was pretty awesome. So it was really entertaining. I'm glad I was able to catch a lot of that.
He's a tough act to follow. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we think about that. And honestly, I had been bragging to everybody. I said, hey, all we got to do is get Sean on camera. This guy's gold. Like, he's verbose, well-spoken, didn't I? I coached these guys up, and I told them, we're in for a treat having Sean on the show today. We haven't got to spend a ton of time together yet this year, Sean. I did take in multiple Midwest Drag Racing Series events. Before we dive into your NHRA accolades, I'm just, congratulations, man. And I just want you to take us through this kind of relatively new experiment that has been racing 8th Mile, racing Top Alcohol Funny Car, not as a supporting category, not as a sportsman category, but really, I would argue, the star of the show in the Midwest Drag Racing Series. What do you make of that kind of transition in your first foray, I would assume, as being the star of the show?
Yeah, the last time I 8th Mile raced, I was in a junior dragster, so it's been a little while. For starters, everybody at the Midwest Drag Racing Series, previously known as the Midwest Pro Mod Series, they have been absolutely gold to us. They have treated us like family from the start. The Pro Mod racers, which I was a little apprehensive about at first. I mean, I didn't want them to feel like we were kind of stealing their thunder, but they have been awesome. We're talking about doing match races and things, awesome. Things on the side. And, Keith Haney and I have been jawing at each other all year long. It's been a really, really good time. It's been really neat because, we traveled in to the side of the country that is door car mania. And no prep and pro mods and the reception we got, I was actually really surprised because they're betting on us too, and they're wanting us to win, and they're shaking their fists in, they're fighting in the stands, and my God, was it a lot of fun. I had as much fun or more doing that than any other thing I've really done in my career. It's been fun. It's been I feel like maybe we helped bring a little level of professionalism to the series.
I would agree with that.
And so I really feel like that we're still in the very early honeymoon stages of the whole thing, because it can do nothing but get better and bigger. There's a lot of teams out there that are talking about building funny cars. There are guys switching from pro mods to funny cars now.
I know, I'm hearing the same thing.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. And it's exciting racing, man. The cars are hauling ass, and the tracks are prepped way, I'll call them good, way better. And,
I feel you.
Boggs tells me, there's not a damn thing we can take from that pro mod race over to the NHRA because it don't compute. And so it has been so much fun, and being able to stir it up and mix it up. It's a new, fresh feeling. As my 15th or 16th year of driving an alcohol funny car, whatever it is, it felt all new again. It was really cool.
That was exactly what I wanted to ask Sean, because I thought it has to be a different feeling to be presented in the Midwest Series as the show, right? I mean, the drama, you're the last cars down the track when it's time to run the finals. The presentation of it. And one thing, most of the events I went to this year, I believe, were held at 8th Mile tracks. But I think of seeing Top Alcohol Funny Car at Extreme Raceway Park. Incredible racing surface, incredible facility, no doubt about it. More concrete than you would likely see at any other racetrack on the planet. but it's still a Saturday night track, right? It's kind of a small honky tonk vibe, and I love it. And I thought, man, Funny Car looks badass on these tracks. Like it's a total, like I think I've used this analogy in the past, but some bands sound better at like a dive bar than they sound at like an amphitheater. And I think Funny Car sounds really good on the Outlaw 8th Mile. Has that been your experience?
100%. You know, first time we actually went to Ferris, Texas, there at Extreme. I mean, the place was packed. It was 1,000 degrees outside and humid, and you know, a guy from California like me don't like the humidity. But anyway, and a guy walked up to the pit and looked at the car and said, "What the hell is that thing?" I said, "That's a Top Alcohol Funny Car." He goes, "Okay, what the hell is that thing?" And I kind of took him through it. And we went up, made a run, and he come back and he said, "Hey, what was that on the starting line? I thought it was going to blow up." I said, "No, that's us leaving the starting line at 7,000 RPM. He goes, "My God, you're out of your goddamn mind driving one of these things." He goes, "I took off running. I thought it was going to explode." And it's that sort of exposure that is so refreshing for us. And I mean, I can't wait to go back and do it again. I was telling Ellen with the Pro Mod series last week, I said, "I wish you guys had 3 more races this year. Let's go do it again. Let's go do it again." Jim Whiteley, you know, a lot of the big names that have been around in drag racing a long time. This is a fresh new thing for us. And boy, it really keeps us going, and we're racing for a lot of money, which doesn't hurt. These tracks that they've added and that we're going to now, man, it's just, it reminds me of being a little kid watching my dad match race at Palmdale, California, or Bakersfield or something like that. It's got that same feel. God dang it, is it refreshing.
It's an awesome thing to see. And that was a great answer, because I feel the same way. Like, I almost forget that there are still guys racing with a clutch and Top Alcohol Funny Car every time I show up to a race, because it's just so unusual. And it's just like, you hear you guys revving those things up and swapping feet, and it's like, oh my God, this is like a trip back in time. It's incredible, because all the things that have so many parts of drag racing get thrown to the wayside in the name of performance, or, you know, going faster, being more consistent or whatever. And it's awesome to see so many racers have stuck to their guns in Top Alcohol Funny Car and having a lot of success doing it. I got a couple of questions, one specific to SEMA. Being out there, you've obviously been racing a long time, many moons in Top Alcohol Funny Car, and a multi-time world champion in Top Alcohol Funny Car. What is your reception from like your sponsors and the kind of racing community? Could you compare and contrast? I mean, does the Midwest Drag Racing Series register to those people? Are they recognizing what you're doing in this other series, or are they still like really trained to focus on what's going on in NHRA Lucas Oil Drag Racing?
You know, the Midwest thing is gaining steam.
Good to hear.
When we won the first one last year, you know, it's a little tough to gauge. I mean, with COVID and everything last year, and even a little bit this year, I think. But you know, it's I mean, NHRA is still the top dog. There's no denying that. There's no, you know, and rightfully so, I suppose.
Agreed.
You know, they've done a good job of building it to what it is today. However, I have a lot of people and a lot of non-sponsors I've talked to on the floor at the show today that are asking me now, "Hey, what is the deal with this Midwest Drag Racing Series?" And you know, almost like they're looking to be involved. And so that can do no harm to anybody. Because the more you build the sport as a whole, I don't care if you're NHRA or IHRA or Midwest or PDRA.
I agree.
It's all good. And sometimes I think people get too nearsighted about that. And so for us as a class now called Funny Car, you know, obviously the biggie is NHRA, but it has gained a lot of ground in just 1 year. So Wes, I would say this year, this time last year compared to now, tenfold as what it was last year. And so
I love to hear that. I really, because that's what I hope. I think that's what the Midwest Drag Racing Series deserves. I think that they are moving up in the world rapidly. The competition level is rapidly increasing. Not to mention just like the presentation of the events is increasing all the time. That it feels like they're always willing to take care of racers and do what needs to be done for the betterment of the group. So it's been fantastic to see. Take us through, if you don't mind, just the mindset behind even experimenting, because to your point, NHRA is the biggest stage that exists in drag racing. I don't think there's an argument to be had. And I don't even know that there's a clear competitor at this stage in the game. NHRA is the stage. But so if that's the case, how does an opportunity even exist for someone like the Midwest Drag Racing Series to bring top alcohol funny car to the table? Do you think it's a matter of wanting to race for more money? Is it the 8th mile that's attractive? Because if there is a fantastic place to race, which I think we all agree the NHRA is, what do you think has driven the need for an alternative by the top alcohol ranks?
I think it's actually pretty simple. There's something I heard Keith Haney say, and that was, this is by racers for racers.
Yep.
The respect level that we get up there is second to none. The fact that we get to go see some racetracks we haven't seen before. I mean, let's face it, new is a good thing. And so the 8th mile thing, I was a little skeptical about at first.
You're a West Coast guy. All you West Coast guys don't like 8th mile.
Well, hey, an alcohol funny car, you're just hitting high gear when it gets to the 8th mile. The run's just getting good, so, that's a really interesting thing, because it's something that has stuck with me from the very first drivers meeting that I was sitting in at the Midwest Series. Was they told us in Ferris, Texas, they said, here's the deal. Gates open at 3 p.m. First cars on the track at 5 p.m. Junior dragsters go first. However, if we feel that there aren't enough people in the stands to watch junior dragsters at 5, we're going to bump them back to 6, because they paid their entry fee just like you pros did. And I just thought that was so cool. And
wow.
It just shows you their mindset, by racers for racers. So with that said, I think that's actually helped the NHRA a little bit too, because now those of us who have run with the Midwest Series, Doug Gordon went and ran some with them. Annie Whiteley's running with them. Some of your heavy hitters now called funny cars running. Well, now you're going back to NHRA going, hey guys, we were treated pretty good over here. What if we did this? And I will say this, NHRA has been receptive to it, much more so than in the past. So I think they see that, hey, maybe we need some help on that side. And so it's a win-win. I take all the credit and throw it toward the Midwest Series. They've just done such a phenomenal job of it. They've got their sponsor, they've got plenty of sponsors backing them, and they just do it the right way. And boy, their presentation of it all is just great.
I agree. And if you look back through, especially the last few years, and I guess I was hoping I would be able to come into the show with a list of 20 examples, but I think there are some kind of famous examples, Jay Payne, of people who have left funny car and moved towards Pro Mod, right? Because that kind of looked like the step up, so to speak. I think that dynamic in some areas has changed. I've heard many of the same things that you have. I've had a lot of guys that I know that race Outlaw Pro Mod or kind of do regional series or outlaw events go, you know what? I think we're going to sell this thing and buy a funny car. Is it cool to kind of hear those conversations or to experience that newfound interest in your brand of drag racing, Sean?
Hell yeah. And what's really cool is a couple of them I've talked to said the sole purpose of doing it and their interest in doing that is just the drivability of the cars. Some of these Outlaw Pro Mods, you hold down a button, light comes on, you let go of the button, it auto shifts its way to the finish line, you pull a parachute. That is not the case in our stuff. You hold clutch pedal down, you put it at 7,000 RPM, and that thing is pissed off, and you better get your foot off that pedal right now. And then you try and keep it between the guardrails, because a funny car, you can drive way harder than a Pro Mod, and that's not knocking the Pro Mods. It's just we got a solid rear axle, and they don't. And we can drive that car all over the racetrack. And just when you think you're done, you get to shift it and then shift it again. And then you got to stop the damn thing. And half the time it doesn't want to do any of it.
Do you think that's because I agree with you. I talk to a lot of people that are tired of auto shifters. And I respect it. It has its place in our sport. There's no doubt about it. Nobody wants to, I don't want to, balk at any new technology or any improvements that come our way, but you hear that all the time. I am always saying that NHRA Pro Stock cars are amongst the most difficult to drive, if not the most difficult to drive cars on the planet, but it's more about the precision that is required, which I think, while I'm not trying to shortchange the precision that's required in a top alcohol funny car, there's that precision, but it's intensified by violence. Whole lot of violence and chaos all around you. And it's kind of amazing. For the uninitiated, and we're pushing our YouTube channel right now, guys. And I appreciate every time I see that little red circle with the white play button in it. It warms my heart, because we're trying to develop a larger audience on YouTube. And I love seeing how much feedback we get on YouTube. But what I've learned about our viewership, Sean, is that we've got like kind of a really hardcore following that exists on Facebook, excuse me. People that have been following Drag Illustrated for 10 or 15 years, and they're like hardcores. Then there's like a newfound audience that we've attracted by way of YouTube. So I would love for some of the uninitiated to maybe hear from you that maybe haven't heard the term swap feet. Like we did, Mike and I, when we were growing up in the pro mod world, and the blower guys and they didn't have a two-step, you know what I mean? It was a totally different time. Can you take us through like your starting line process for the uninitiated? Because I think JT, my co-host here, even he will appreciate how intense this string of events really is.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And by the way, for anybody listening, if you ever see us at a racetrack, come by the pit. I will take you through every step of it, pulling the levers, holding down the pedals. It's awesome. But, you know, in a funny car, being a center steer car, you've got a clutch can and a transmission going right in between your legs. There's not room in there for 3 pedals. So you clutch pedal on the left, the throttle pedal on the right, and a brakes are on a handle. And, you know, of course, body down around you and all that good stuff. But, you know, the starting process and the leave of the starting line is so critical in one of our cars, because like any of the others, wheel speed is everything. And you got to get just enough, not too much, not too little. So how do you do that with a clutch car? Leave RPM. And so what we do is you jam that left foot down as tight as you can, and that pedal's kicking against your foot hard. And you start revving that thing up at the pre-stage light. And typically we're around 7,000 RPM. And you're holding back on the brakes, 600, 700, 800 pounds of brake pressure. And the best way I can describe it is when you hear the other car start to rev up and you start to rev up, now you've got a 4,000 horsepower car that is literally the engine's at the tip of your toes at 7,000 RPM, and you have to move it that far to stage it and do it right, or you red light, or you get timed out. Then... And, you know, and this is where people go, how do you get good reaction times? I say, you ever sat in one of them damn things when they're at 7,000? They're pissed off. I just want to let go of the pedal so we can get
right.
going.
You're trying to get out.
Yeah, just get out of this thing. It is the ultimate assault on the senses, being down inside of that car. And for people who are new to our course, our class, I tell them, you know what? Don't watch from the finish line. I mean, you're liable to wear body parts or catch parts if you sit down by the finish line. Sit right on the starting line, because you get 2 of them things at 7,000 RPM, it's rocking the ground. And it is again, it's just such an assault on the senses. So once that tree comes on, you got 3 things going on all at once. You got to put the right foot down, the left foot up, and let go of those brakes. And you have to do it absolutely simultaneously, or you smoke the tires or you bog the motor.
It's so fun to watch, because knowing those things and watching from afar, it's even more enjoyable. But it really does harken back to, like, I believe we're living in the glory days of our sport, but there's no doubt that times have changed. The cars are more controlled now. There's more driver assisted functions in the car, and to see those things rocking and rolling like they do, rolling in and lighting the bottom bulb, it's an incredible thing. One of the things that I have noticed watching your team from afar is there's a real air of professionalism. You run what is people love to lump top alcohol funny car in as a sportsman category. I would argue that, but maybe that's not the thing for today. But one of the things that I've noticed about your program, Sean, is you guys, I mean, from the crew uniforms, nice pants, black shoes, cruise shirts, the way you guys manage yourself and react and handle yourself on the starting line, nothing but professionalism. Can you just, where did that come from, that approach, and how has it served you? We have a lot of young racers, a lot of up and comers, a lot of people that field their own teams on here, or have a small tire racing program and someday are hoping to move up the ranks. How has that professionalism and that approach served you, you know, chasing sponsors at SEMA and all your kind of interactions as a racer?
Got to tell you, it's a bigger deal than people think. And for me personally, confidence in the car. Yeah. You know, there's no excuse not to have a routine. Okay, a routine is easy. All you got to do is put the effort forth yourself. And there's no substitute for routine. I tell people, well, and I'll give you a good example. While I was listening to you guys talk to Richard Freeman, the names that you guys were bringing up, fresh faces in Pro Stock, which is such a great thing. How many of them were junior drag racers? Damn near all of them, right? That's where you build your routine. And so the first lap I ever made in a junior dragster was in the right lane at Pomona Raceway in 1994. And I'm getting ready to go to Pomona Raceway, run down the same right lane in top alcohol funny car. And I'm going to do the same routine that I did back in 1994, because that's the way my dad taught me. So the professionalism side, that comes from Tony Bartone. He's a professional businessman. He's been in many forms of auto racing over the years. And that's how he wants his ship run. Perfect. That's great. About 4 weeks ago, we had an incident in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where about launched the body off the car, completely destroyed the thing, basically, other than the chassis and the rear end. And my guys had to rally around one another and figure out something to do, a system to put together to get that car fixed, get back on track, and be competitive instantly. Well, you do that because of your professionalism toward one another, the respect you have for one another. So I don't care what level you're racing at, whether it's a junior dragster, a big tire car, a super pro car, or a funny car. That level of professionalism, that just the mindset of it and the routine. The first time I got back in that car after the explosion, that thing went right down Broadway and set low ET of testing. We ended up winning that race, and we come to Las Vegas this past weekend and win that one too. That's all because of the things that you saw there. And I never had one question when I got back in that car that thing was going to be perfect, because of all of that. And that starts with Tony Bartone and the guys he hired and that mantra that he teaches. It's those little things that you see that you'll never hear about or never see unless you understand the backside of it. That is worth more than I could ever describe.
It's amazing to hear you talk about it, and we preach it all the time too. You may have heard us earlier in the show talking about our Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30. We'll unveil that at the PRI show, but that's something that we preach to those kids, is like establish routines early, carry yourself as a professional, because all those things make such a difference, and they will at some point in your racing career be a difference maker. I mean, they will be a difference maker. Speaking of being a difference maker, you're the ultimate needle mover in the category right now across both those sanctions. Let's just call it, you're the guy that everybody's gunning for. You're the guy setting the pace for everyone else. When you've put together 5 world championships in recent memory, 3 NHRA, inarguably the highest accomplishment that exists in our sport, and back-to-back championships in the Midwest Drag Racing Series, what motivates you next? What's on the radar for Sean Bellemeur? Are you going, hey, maybe one of these days we want to get a big show car going, or do you feel you've got a permanent home in alcohol funny car, especially as its status rises in our sport? What's your take?
That's an interesting question, and I think if we had a crystal ball, it'd be interesting to see what it says. But I have a lot of mixed emotions about moving up. Number one, I am Tony Bartone's driver. Tony and Steve Boggs treat me and my family so well that whatever they want to do, if they want to knock this funny car thing off and run an F-Stock automatic next week, I'll be in. Driver for F-Stock automatic. We have a mojo, and kind of going back to your last question, we have a mojo that just something there works, and that has a lot to do with the success we've had. I was just sitting here thinking again when you were talking to Freeman about those names, and I mean Dallas Glenn and TJ and everybody.
Kyle Koretsky now and Aaron Stanfield, and I mean it's really crazy.
Okay, so let's open the can of worms a little bit with the politics of the big show. How many young new fuel drivers are out there? Because every time I see a chat board or something like that about, well, sure would be neat to see Beckman back in the car. It'd be neat to see TJ back in the car. And they're right, it would. But where does that put somebody like me or somebody like Doug Gordon or Shane Westerfield? Okay, there's no real avenue there unless there's $1 million to be thrown toward it. So
how big of a problem is that? It's such a big problem.
Huge
I mean,
problem.
JT talks about it all the time, that, we talk about on this show a lot, how frustrating it is that, and this isn't a shot at anybody, but I can't get excited about Jack Beckman coming back. I can't really get excited about TJ coming back. I mean, it's great stories, and if it happens, fantastic, but I don't know. It doesn't necessarily represent growth to me. It represents them securing the funding to go buy that ride again. And it's tough, because I think drag racing as a professional sport will always struggle to some degree as long as an environment exists where the most talented people aren't put in cars.
Right.
Like that's a real issue,
To me, the marketing side of it is so wrong. And again, I'll probably open up and get
you're good
for that, but it's all right. Nothing new for me. Put it this way. J.R. Todd came in, and nothing against J.R. I'd like the guy. We respect one another. Hell of a driver. But J.R. Todd came into Nitro ranks in like 2005, 4.
Yeah. Top Fuel. NHRA, and like, yeah, we had just started the magazine.
NHRA's marketing him as the next generation. That was 16 years ago. Okay, this ain't the next generation. And now you get things like Josh Hart. I heard you talking about him.
Yep.
And Josh deserves a lot. He's done some really cool stuff, especially being his own team owner.
Yes,
and things
agreed.
Like that. That's big deal. But it's not all of us can do that. And I would love to be able to showcase my talents potentially at the highest level. Now, if Tony wanted to do something like that, I'm all in.
Which probably isn't out of the question, right?
Well, yeah, well, and it isn't. However, here's another problem that the NHRA made for themselves. These 4-car teams, these 3 and 4 in Top Fuel and Funny Car. If Tony Bartone with unlimited funding, and Steve Boggs with the biggest brain in the world, in my opinion, is maybe the best crew chief in the history of our sport.
I think that's fair.
Were to enter into Nitro Funny Car for the 2022 season, how long would it take us to even get in the ballpark of 25 years of data at JFR times 3 times 4 and DSR and Colette?
Did that raise your eyebrows? When it raised mine when I heard Freeman talking about having what is, I mean, unequivocally a competing engine builder operating under the same roof as his program, because clearly some of the things and the approach that is being taken by the pro stock kind of community, some of it's working. I'm not saying it's all, rainbows and lollipops over there, but if we're using car inventory as a measuring stick, it's working really well. And I think it's that collaboration, bringing teams up to speed quickly. And I've wondered if the NHRA's ever kind of wrapped their head. There's been rumors in the past of like Alan Johnson, Top Fuel Alan Johnson, like giving like a baseline tune-up to somebody or trying to help someone get along. But it would seem to me, especially when we see the number of cars that spontaneously combust on the starting line, the cars that kind of come out of the woodwork, you don't see them out there very often in the struggles they have. Man, wouldn't we be money ahead and like progress ahead to lend those teams a hand and get them started?
Yeah. And, one thing that Freeman is smart businessman. That is healthy for the overall wealth of the class long term. And, and somebody who's done some of this too, and I know a lot of the field teams have, but I know Don Schumacher has, helped smaller teams out with parts and sometimes even personnel and things like that. The problem is that, those cars are so, first of all, they're so volatile. Not just anybody can drive them. Okay. So, your pay one day, drive the next day thing ain't necessarily what it's all cracked up to be. And boy, that exposes the weak quickly. But not everybody's going to have the wherewithal to become Ron Capps or Matt Hagan or John Force in the first year or even 2 driving.
True.
Okay. So if you get 2 years under your belt, what does that cost?
You're probably $3 million in before you're getting your acclimated. And it's that's a tough pill to swallow. Like, we wouldn't have Patrick Mahomes as like a star quarterback in the NFL if he had to bring $3 million to the table to get a shot with the Chiefs. You know what I mean? And that's really that's unfortunately the scenario that exists in pro level drag racing. Well, let's end on a high note. Tell us about your SEMA experience, and we'll cut you loose, guys. We're headed into the final part of the show here today. I would love to know how SEMA's going for you, man. What's it like being on the floor of the show amidst a global pandemic and everything that's happened the last 18 months or 2 years?
It's just good to see everybody back again.
Yes, sir.
Now, it's been a while because my feet hurt like hell. But it's been good. It's a little light this year, but I anticipate that'll ramp up. I'm really excited to see what PRI's like. In fact, I've been meaning to pull you aside, and you need to do a 40 over 40, so that way I can qualify for something.
Bear with us.
Yeah. sponsored by Just for Men, right?
Yeah,
but
you and me both. Oh, rough.
But no, it's good, man. The Vegas experience, good to see all the smiling faces again, and kind of like the racing thing when it ramped back up again. God, you just wanted to hug everybody because it's been
so true.
You've seen everybody, and a lot of high fives, a lot of smiles, a lot of handshakes, and a lot of positivity going into 2022. I'm excited.
Well, that's what I wanted to hear, Sean. And thank you so much for joining us, spending some time. I hate to have you sitting in a hallway all Wednesday afternoon at SEMA, but we appreciate you doing it with us on the Wes Buck Show. Congratulations on all your success. And I do look forward to seeing you at the PRI show that first weekend in December, man. Be safe.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
No problem, brother. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are headed toward the finish line, and I'm going to go ahead and do what everybody loves for us to do. I'm going to throw those switches and get us ready for Drag Illustrated After Hours. Hey guys, we're good to have you back, man. What a hell of a
this has been
a good one.
Sean Bellemeur was well spoken is an understatement. What a great ambassador for that class too. I mean, that guy needs to be in front of a camera more. That's another travesty of the NHRA deal is that with the success he's had, that he's not out there more as far as just him, the person, the personality. So,
dude, I literally,
awesome.
I encountered him a couple of times this year, and I've known of Sean for a while, and obviously Tony Bartone, but man, I had multiple people tell me, you've got to get this guy on your show. You've got to get him. You got to do an interview with him. He's so good. Yeah. And man, truth. I mean, real talk. That guy's a superstar in the making.
Like
if he
you said,
isn't already.
The professionalism is really cool too. That's a good looking car. I always look at the wraps or the paint job or the sponsor layout, and they've got like the single color decals and the Hussey copper deal with the Bartone brothers. I mean, that's a good looking ride too.
I want to remind everybody, thank you again for being a part of this. I'm speaking on behalf of Mike, JT, the whole team at Drag Illustrated. Yep. It makes all the difference in the world having you guys be here. I want to remind you, tell us what you want to talk about. We got in trouble last week for having predetermined plans headed into DI After Hours. So today we're clearing the slate. You guys totally drive the conversation. Throw it in the comments. If you've got something you want us to talk about, a question you want to ask, we are all ears. We maybe should turn this into like Ask Me Anything. Have you seen those on like Reddit, AMAs? Yeah, it's an Ask Me Anything segment here on the Wes Buck Show, and I'm hoping we get some fun ones, man. We got to consider having Freeman on more often because I think we had like all 400 of his employees watching as well.
Did we? Yeah. I mean,
it was great. Like,
yeah, he made everybody stop working and tune in.
You were on an interview, but he had Brotherton helping him set up the phone, and I took a screenshot.
What was going on?
And I was like, "Oh boy!"
At one point,
we got those.
It was so distracting.
At one point, Jake
got a hold of it.
Yeah.
And so I started.
Well, Jake was outside. I looked down at the green room at one point.
He did. He said he was the IT guy today because Chase was gone.
Oh, so, I was what is happening?
And yeah, he told me he was the IT guy today, so he was getting it set up for him. But
there's Stan Waxberg in the comments right away. Question numero uno. Let's talk about Leah and Brittany top end interviews. I wish I had this queued up. We probably could have requested it from NHRA. I don't know what Brittany's top end interview looked like. Do you know exactly what they're talking about, Mike? I'm not for sure on that one.
The Leah one.
The Leah one, though, I watched. I saw the Leah one. Interesting situation there. And I honestly don't have a tremendous amount of insight, to be honest with you guys.
Well, tell us about the Leah one. What was it?
Well, so basically she was on camera and she said something to the effect of like, it's so nice to be racing without, and I'm paraphrasing, so please don't punish me, folks, like without a fire breathing dragon
on my back.
Or a dragon breathing down my neck or something like that. And I can't.
I don't know. I mean, read into it as you want, but
I'm reading into it as anxiously anticipating an exit from Don Schumacher Racing. That's I mean, I guess I'm probably going to get in trouble already, but I mean, am I wrong? How else can you interpret it?
Let's see how it plays out.
Right? I mean, it would appear to me, and listen, this is another thing that nobody ever wants to talk about, but clearly there's some hard feelings, right?
Good. I mean, I would say good. I don't want it to be a bad situation, but again,
I don't have a dog in that fight.
I'm not mad that she showed that emotion or that she said that. Like that's the theme, I feel like, of this show. And
we talk about
specifically
time,
this
right?
episode. Show us what you're feeling. I'm not mad at her for saying that.
I'm not mad at her at all, and I want people to know I don't have a dog in that fight.
I don't have a dog in the fight either.
About not burning bridges on your way out as far as teams go, because in 5 years down the road, you never know where you're going to be.
It's true. It's true,
maybe
and
that's something you want to revisit.
I mean, I think Leah has had most all of her, fuel racing success is directed or connected to Don Schumacher Racing. However, hey, we don't know. I'll tell you. I'll give a little bit of an example.
We've heard it from one pendulum swing to the other as far as what's happened there or whatever, and it's just these deals. When something like this happens, it's never going to be perfect or pretty, and that's been a long-term relationship. And, a year or two from now, I think we'll forget about that. But like I said, I'm not mad. It's probably the same thing. Don Schumacher's probably not mad that she said it. He's probably like, well, I'm proud of her for showing that emotion or voicing it, because he gets it. He's been
and let's be honest, man. I mean,
I doubt
I
doubt that's true.
So the elephant of the room right today was the team orders thing or whatever. But let's be honest, like she just got engaged to Tony Stewart. Like, who wouldn't be kind of excited about what that future represents? I mean, this is a girl who's had to, and I don't say girl, what's the word? Like, this is a young woman. Let me back up. Yeah, disparagingly. This is a young woman who has fought the good fight. I mean, she has had to fight tooth and nail and claw her way up the drag racing ladder. And she's racing at the highest level that exists. And I'm sure she's proud of what she's accomplished. But I also think at certain times, especially with the subpar performance of that car in recent years, I mean, I'm sure she's going, I don't want to run out of my moment. You know what I mean? I know that I've had that where it's like, hey, we need to take advantage of this time where things are good or whatever. And we need to, double down. And I'm sure Leah's going, hey, I'm in my prime as a driver. I'm in my prime as a person. I'm in my prime in terms of marketability. Like, I need to be winning championships. I need to be winning. I need to be winning races. Now's the time. And I'm sure that's something that kind of what we talked about with Brittany Force last week that most men don't experience.
Right.
I mean, they don't have this, hey, maybe Leah wants to start a family at some point. Maybe, she doesn't feel like she's the young gun that she was 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? She's probably wanting to make hay while the sun is shining, they say. And I'm sure she's wanting to stack some trophies up.
Speaking of Brittany, what's this?
Not young anymore. I mean, really.
Yeah. Were you guys shocked when Sean Bellemeur said that J.R. Todd, I mean, you think about J.R. Todd is still identified as like one of the kids in NHRA, one of the young guys, but he's been racing funny car for like 2 decades almost. That is bonkers, bro. Right. So bonkers.
What's the Brittany Force thing?
I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to try to cue it up. Hold on.
Cause I didn't see this part. Hysterical is what.
It's funny though, when you talk about young kids or whatever, like, I'm 44 years old, but when I'm still around the guys that I kind of grew up that were older guys, I still feel like I'm a young kid around them, like when they
Here's the other thing that drives me crazy.
Like you're a young kid, JT, all the time.
That's okay.
Here we go. So what drives me crazy real quick is like, the only video is a qualifying video from NHRA. It just feels like there should be more. There should be more content here. This was after she qualified high. Okay, well, this is provisional number 1 pass with a quick interview with Grubby.
Interview after she lost. So go to eliminations.
Well, that'll take me like 3 hours. I'm going to have somebody else help me. I don't know. It's interesting. I thought Brittany was super candid with us. And I think that they were looking to go in and they knew, imagine the pressure that young woman and team are under, because they're a team that are seemingly bringing partners on and looking to secure long-term teams. And they've got a lot of different companies that have been associated with that car. So I'm sure they're looking for like stable footing, right? Secure support moving forward. And I can't imagine how much a world championship would mean to them in that hunt, in that journey. And Elon Warner pretty well spelled it out, right? I mean, it's going to take a miracle for Steve Torrence not to win the championship. So if she had to see that door closed on camera or in front of a microphone, that's a tough moment for anybody, right?
It is, absolutely. But we need it. We need to see that.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I'm not
mad. I wouldn't be mad. Whatever she said, I'm not mad at what she said. I'm just going to go ahead and put it on record.
Well,
because we want to see that. We want to see that emotion from these people. I do.
I definitely
want to know they're human. And I want to know that they care. We talked to her last week. We see how focused she is and how much she cares. I think the assumption is, it's a force. They don't care about this. They've got it made or whatever. No, these people, they care. And we want to see that and be reminded of it.
I'm reminded. There's one little John Force story I want to share. Is I remember the first time that I went to John Force racing in Yorba Linda, California. Would have been back in 07, I think it was. It's been a long time ago. I went out there for the first time. Flew out. Actually hung out with Leah Pruitt a little bit. Hung out with my buddy Jason Sharp. We flew out there to shoot the cover of the magazine. It's been a long time ago. Anyways, I remember being so. It was a profound experience for me to be in that shop, which was an old Chevy dealership or something. I mean, it was huge, a sprawling facility that's, a dealership size facility that had been converted into a race shop and showroom and museum. It's amazing. And I remember saying this to John and feeling it in the moment and for many years afterwards, just being so proud. Drag racing built this.
Right.
This isn't a guy that made his money in the oil fields. This isn't a guy who made his money in construction or the pipelines. And that's fantastic. But this is a guy who has built a fortune, built a brand, built a huge business on the back of drag racing. Then to your point, Mike, this stuff maybe means more to the John Forces of the world and the Brittany Forces of the world than anybody, because they don't have a fallback plan. They don't have, I mean, I'm sure John's got a bunch of money put back. He lives on a palatial estate in Southern California. And I felt the same way. And I actually said it to John when I went to their facility in Brownsburg, Indiana. Like, this is so inspiring to know that I don't necessarily need to go start some other business selling cigarette lighters or become a farmer. You know what I mean? To try to make enough money to support my drag racing goals. That it was this huge, big ass reminder in brick and mortar that the sport of drag racing can do this. This exists. And I remember saying that to John. I said, thank you, dude. You are the ultimate inspiration. I don't care what you do on the racetrack. The fact that drag racing has provided you the opportunity to build this, it's unspeakably cool. It's incredible, man. And so when people think that the forces don't care that much, or that maybe they've already had all their success, or that they're kind of laissez-faire about it, I would argue that they're the total opposite. I think they care more than anyone.
They know they got to hustle.
Jr. says she basically was saying how she couldn't catch a break because she had her best light in a long time and still got beat on a hole shot.
Oh,
I think, we should have talked to kudos to her for being candid. I mean, she's admitting right there that,
thank you, Darren Williams Jr.
Yeah.
Shout out, man. It's that's tough. It's been hard to see. It's been, especially Mike Salinas has been on this unconscious run with these killer reaction times. And I mean, it's clearly working out for him, but I can't imagine how frustrating it is to have that coincide. Mike Salinas' newfound good lever in our sport, have that coincide with
right.
with your a relatively public struggle with cutting a light. And here's the thing: young person, resilient, dedicated to the craft, and committed to improving. I think these young men and women are athletes, and I think they'll find a way. If Mike Salinas can figure it out, and I say that just as somebody who's been around the sport a long time, but admits that he has been the weak link for that program on many occasions. I mean, he has turned the corner. He's not a young man. He's got other fish to fry. He's got big businesses to run. If he's been able to tighten things up, I can't imagine that Brittany Force is going to struggle tightening things up. There's Darren Williams with the data giving us the receipts. Brittany Force 058 and a 368 to Mike Salinas' 373. But 370 with a 3, but an 027 light. I also don't know what's going on with these reaction times. I do think these 0-teen, we saw Alexis Ajoria has had some incredible reaction times this year. Are people just taking chances? Or are they pushing it more than they've ever done before?
They've been watching NPK on Monday nights.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got to be something like that, to be totally honest with you guys.
Look who just jumped in here real quick.
Oh, look at this.
What's up?
Yo,
Lyle Barnett in the house, man. Congratulations,
dude.
There.
Man, is that like a gunmetal or black, or what color is that thing? It's like a special edition.
It's like black. It's like black chrome.
Black chrome.
It's for the 1000th NHRA national event deal.
Dude, kudos to NHRA for all they did to make that 1000th national event special, because I didn't know they were doing those trophies, and I saw you post it, and I'm going to be honest, initially I got pissed. I go, man, is this some half-ass Wally that they're giving the Pro Mod guys?
No.
But then I started to see other pictures, and no, that's not the case at all. Then I saw those poker chips. Did you get one of those badass poker chips?
I got the smaller, it's a real poker chip, like it.
Yeah. Oh, really?
But it's like a real. I mean, it looks just like a poker chip, like you would play with in Vegas, obviously, and it's got the 1000th national event deal, and then all the Camping World Series drivers got the big cutouts, which I was kind of jealous about that. But
you should be kind of jealous.
The real poker chip, pretty sweet though.
Dude, I appreciate you taking the time, Lyle, and I know you just landed here on the East Coast. I'm sure it's been a long couple of days for you. Have you been able to, unpack any of this? Your story is well told.
No.
We've told it here a lot. Somehow 2 wins in the last 3 races of the season. Just take us through where you're at mentally right now.
I mean, honestly, now we're all fired up to get 2022 going, right? We'll go back to Charlotte. I was ready not to quit, but I was ready to park for the year. I'm like, look, we're spending ridiculous money. We're not running good. Everybody's morale's down. Like, nobody wants to be here. Let's just stop for the year. Let's save money. Let's go test. Let's get our shit together, and that's when obviously the Hairston family, over a couple of drinks at dinner in the Elite Pit, was like, oh, let's bring the turbo car back out. And I'm like, well, whatever, yeah, sure. Let's try it. That's what I really love anyway, is the turbo stuff. And then here we are, 2 out of the last 3 races we've won, and now we've got some old names. We're not going to talk about it yet, but we've got old names that are interested in coming back in with turbo stuff, or maybe be associated with my program. So,
awesome.
A flip of the script. And now I wish that Gainesville was in like a month.
How hard did you party?
Yeah, go ahead.
How hard did you party that night, huh?
So
that's why he couldn't be on the show. He's still recovering.
My buddy Brad, who just picked me up from the airport, was there. A bunch of my buddies flew out from Charlotte. One, because we were going to be in Vegas and it was the last event and we're running good. Got a chance to win, which they got to experience all that, which was awesome. But I think we got back to the hotel at like 4:30 in the morning on Monday morning, and we spent the entire night on Fremont Street. So
proud of you.
In the back, in the green room, maybe we'll talk. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. All the that was my first trip to Vegas. So.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I was just looking at this. I thought you had more reaction time or more. These 2 wins represented, the first one obviously being at the Texas Fall Nationals outside of Dallas at the Motorplex. You had 2 hole shot wins that race, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about. One was an itty bitty hole shot, but a hole shot nonetheless in the opening round against Belushi, but again in the final against Justin Bond, and you were the difference maker again. This past weekend in Vegas. It's got to be a proud moment, right? Listen, everybody's jumping up and down. I've had a dozen texts about turbo cars. I'm getting emails as we speak about turbo cars, but we do have to be honest that, you're really the difference maker, Lyle. Is that lost on you? I know it's a team effort, but I got to get you to say, like, you're making the difference right now, Lyle.
Yeah. And honestly, it was part of our game plan this weekend. Justin always asks me when we get in the later rounds, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to try to do? I think we can go 75 or 6, but if it doesn't make the trip, we're going to kick ourselves in the nuts, and I'm like, dude, just let me go up there and do my thing. I've worked hard in the seat, here, especially going into the turbo world, because it's tough to cut a light in those cars. I've fine-tuned my trans brake button. Like Justin fine tunes the fuel map in that thing, like I shim it. I've figured out ways to hold my hand, like, and all this stuff. And he told me before the final, he said, I gave it a little bit, but it's more than likely going to repeat. I'm going to put it on you. I'm going to let you and JR figure it out. And that's really the way I wanted it, you know. And for the weekend, I averaged a 19. I was 007 or 8.
Bad son of a bitch right there.
In E1, I was 21 I was 007 in Q1, 21 in Q2, 31 in Q3. I was 12 in E1. Nothing against the Russians and whatnot that ran with us, which was pretty cool to have them come over. But I felt like I had a favorable advantage, and 12 is getting pretty close to 00.
True. Oh, shit. We lost him. You may have to come back in, Lyle. Oh, no, there he is.
There he's back.
Sorry, I got a phone call. But I had a favorable, you know, opponent in Q2, so I backed off a little bit and was 34.
Probably calling again.
Probably calling him again.
It's his wife. It's his wife. Where the hell are you?
Where are you? You've been gone for 6 days.
Am I back?
You're back now.
You're back.
So I was 21 in the buy run, and then in the final, I just took everything that I could. I told one of my buddies, I said, look, it might go red right here, but I've got to be there. And I was 11, you know, and that averaged to a 19 for the weekend, which, you know, and I am proud of that. I'll be honest with you. You know, like, it's, for most of my career, I've kind of prided myself on a pretty good performance on the starting line, and, you know, and I got it done. And it's exactly the way, you know, I want to win it. And I know it sucks for JR, you know, that they had a hot rod that was there in the final, you know, and 40, he wasn't late, you know, but we just ran really tight, and I was just a little bit better, you know, and it paid off, you know, for us to win 2 of the last 3 is, I don't think you could write it any better, you know.
Longtime Drag Illustrated photographer and all-around great young man, a member of the Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30, just threw this out here, Lyle, and I just want to get a couple of things and pull this from you. He just threw a comment in here. Interesting tidbit. I made a post about Lyle winning Sunday evening, and on Monday, I had a Facebook memory from 6 years ago from Lyle's dad, and it was a photo of him headed home to NC from the hospital. You think of all that has transpired inside of those the last 6 years, Lyle, it's got to be surreal to be headed home with your second Wally in your lap, right? Shit, that was a great setup. Right? What a great setup.
I think I'm back.
And now okay, I think you're back too. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm in a not so good service place. No.
Pull over.
I can see.
There we go. We can hear you now. Don't move.
Shit. Nope.
I'm not moving.
I can't tell if he's messing with us.
You mean the car don't move. Oh, I thought
I knew he was doing that to us. No. Take us through, and we'll let you go. I mean, I want to have you. We're going to have you back, I believe, next Wednesday. I want to remind everybody, Lyle's going to rejoin the Drag Illustrated ride-along cast Monday night. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be watching No Prep Kings on Discovery Channel. We'd love to have you join us. But Lyle, literally, last question. Just take us raw emotional moment. 6 years ago, you're in a hospital bed, not knowing what's next. Today, you are, a two-time NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series winner. How do you feel?
Yeah, so Sunday afternoon or Sunday night, whenever, when the race was over, it was exactly 6 years to the day that I spent my last night in the intensive care unit at the JMS Burn Center in Augusta. And then Monday, which at 4:30 in the morning, and Vegas time at least, I was not partying in a casino anywhere 6 years ago, but I was back home in North Carolina, and that would have been Monday of this week, So a full circle experience for sure, and a moment that obviously my dad, my family, and all of you guys and everybody across the nation that stood behind me in 2015, and gave me words of encouragement and really was the drive behind me to get back in the seat later that next year. It was a full circle moment for all of us, not just me, not just my dad, not just Melissa, not just my mom, but I feel like for all of you, because collectively as a group, and which is what is something that's so cool about the drag racing community, collectively as a group, y'all all got together behind me, you know, and kept my drive alive. You know, it wasn't, I mean, I guess I was tough, you know, and I pushed through a lot, you know, and my family dealt with a lot, you know, and whatnot. But as a group, you all suffered at times when maybe I wasn't going to make it, right? Like, you know, so for us to seal the deal here and win the 1000th national event, the last event of my rookie season, you know, and to cap it off with 2 wins on the year. I couldn't write it any better. You guys are the writers, but I don't know that anybody could write it any better, you know, and I'm just,
we couldn't, Lyle. I mean, I was trying not to say that I had goosebumps, but I've had them since you got on here. So everybody's going to have to, I mean, they won't go away. This may be a condition.
You're easy to root for, Lyle.
Dude,
yeah, for sure.
I'm going to throw this out here and I hope it sticks. The people's champ. I mean, you really are. Lyle, you're a man of the people. I've seen you interact with folks at the racetrack. I see how people gravitate towards you and your story. One of the things that you and your dad and your mom, Tammy, all have told me is just how much you want this story to inspire people. Like, you don't want this to be for nothing. Like, it's fantastic that Lyle's winning drag races, and it's fantastic that you're having success. But what you've always wanted to come from this traumatic experience was to inspire others to keep going. And I want you to know that you've done that. If that was the goal you set out to achieve, was to make a difference, Lyle, and encourage people to forge forward, I mean, you're a world champion many times over, my friend. And I love you to death, and we couldn't be more proud of you. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing, and it's a story we will never get tired of telling, brother.
I've got a dude that's texting me right now. It's the buddy of Scott Palmer's, the kid that got burnt. God help me. I'll have to go look. But anyway, he just had his first laser treatment, you know, and he's texting me, asking me what to do, you know, and how to overcome, you know, the next few days and whatnot. And I told him, and I'll tell you what I told him. I'm like, dude, you need, you know, this to put on the laser sights and some Tylenol, but it's just going to suck for a day or two, you know. But I still like, and I encourage people that have, it doesn't have to be specific to a burn, but I encourage people that are going through, you know, tough times, because I was in a really dark place for a long time. PTSD is a real thing, you know, like I went through all of this, and I have, you know, ways that I dealt with it, you know, and I still talk to people today. I'm a part of a group that talks to burn victims down at the same burn center I was in, and I visit that place often. I'm fixing to kick off my kids' Christmas campaign that I do every year. I raise money to buy the kids that spend their Christmas holiday in the burn center. And a lot of that comes from me being there around that time and knowing that parents would quit their jobs and not be able to make their house payment or, you know, pay the bills, you know, and then move to Augusta, Georgia, which is all bad, you know, and you don't want anybody to do that. But then their 6-year-old kid who got burnt at the bonfire, you know, 3 weeks before Christmas also doesn't get Christmas presents because their parents can't afford it, you know, and that's not fair.
It's not.
And I every year I buy a bunch of gifts and we take them down there, and I think we've raised over 20 grand so far.
Well, we're going to raise more. Just so you know, we want to be a part of that. The Wes Buck Show, Drag Illustrated. I don't mean to put words in the mouth of our partners here, but I know Tommy Cunningham and the gang at Stroud will join the movement. I'm sure Elite HP will step up. Sand Haulers of America, Flow Racing. We want to be a part of that, man. If those people made a difference in your life, we want to make a difference in theirs. It's near and dear our heart, and we'd be happy to be a part of that. So whenever you start to roll out the toy drive, let me know, and we'll help you. We'll help you get some toys, some badass ones.
My plan is to get my stuff together and do it next week so that I've got a little time. They do what they call a shop with the docs. So they set up a conference room. They roll the kids in individually, and they get to go shop, right? They get to go pick out their toys and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
That's coming awesome at the beginning of December. So I got to get my ass in gear, you know, but my goal is 20 grand this year. It's you know, with COVID and whatnot and all that's going on, it's a lot easier for them to go buy the gifts or go like fill up a cart on Target.com. Right. And then I just go pay for it and they go pick it up because it has to be sanitary, you know, with all that's going on. But, they do that several times throughout the year, and but the biggest one's at Christmas. So I'll let you know, Wes and Mike and JT, and we'll get together next week.
We'll take care of it, brother. We'll do all we can to help, man. Seriously.
Tommy Cunningham says they're in.
Tommy Cunningham is in. There's no surprise there. It's incredible, man, what you're doing. We're so happy. And it's funny. I say this all the time. We need guys to have success. It's important that guys like you, families like yours, teams like Elite Motorsports, guys like Justin Elks and the gang at Modern Racing, can't say enough about Mike, Anthony, whom else? Ben, all sorts of incredible guys. It's so good for everybody in that group. Man, you need a W every once in a while. And this is going to get everybody through the winter and have everybody fired up and on 11 headed into 2022. And that's a great thing for the sport of drag racing, man.
Yep. Hey, it was Ben's birthday on Sunday. So for Ben's 31st birthday, we got him a Wally, which is pretty cool too.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. Well, get your butt home and be safe. All right. And I'll remind everybody, Lyle's going to join us Monday night on the Drag Illustrated Ride Along. I'll shoot you a text and we'll get connected so we don't screw it up. All right, brother?
Sounds good. Appreciate you letting me come in.
Thanks, buddy.
Right,
Anytime, going home.
See you guys.
Congratulations.
Dude, unreal, right? I mean,
awesome.
I got to tell you, I didn't say them earlier when I was having all my goosebump moments, but like this has been a great episode, right? I mean, like hearing like the raw, candid commentary from Freeman, right? The raw, candid commentary from Sean and talking about different things. Then we had Lyle come in, not to mention like having some real sports insider baseball stuff with Elon. That was fun. I love Josh Hatchett at the beginning of the show.
I'm a nerd like Elon, so I love those stats that he brought in. This comment from Cole about Lyle. We talked about this when Lyle won his first race a few weeks ago. We've known Lyle for a long time, and he's the drag radio local racer around here. But the way he presents himself in his top end interviews on the big stage is, to me, the icing on the cake. Like, I'm so impressed by that deal. I mean, to do all this is tough, but then to get out and have all those emotions and to really not be that experienced on this stage and to present himself like that, he's knocking it out of the park.
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane to me to think about how he's able to bottle up. Can you imagine? Oh, that's my little girl's watching. Oh, Sophia. Hey, Sophia. What's up, baby? She told me the coolest thing she said to me the other day. She goes, Dad. I'm like, yeah, baby. She goes, or actually I said, let's be honest. Yeah, boo-boo. I call her boo-boo. She says to me, she goes, guess who was on my For You page? And she's talking about YouTube, right? The suggested videos. Okay. And she goes, you. And I'm like, yes. She told me that she told someone her dad was a YouTuber, and I'm like, yep, that's exactly right. That's about explains it.
Christian does want to get into the YouTube game now that he sees me on here. He wants a mic and he wants to.
My kids want to do it for a couple of years now.
Your kids are good at it, man. Your kids have already been in the game.
Sophia and I shot what was it that we were reviewing? We reviewed Skittles. We went to the store. We bought 4 different bags of Skittles, and she did a unbelievable 15-minute like compare and contrast. It's hilarious, and I'm going to set her up a YouTube channel
because they sit and watch these videos for so long.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it is crazy the time they waste on just watching watching other people do things. Like you could go outside and do that.
Wow, you can.
You're such an old man, Dad. You go outside and you could too. But you're watching TV. You could go like build a tree fort or mine for gold, like your favorite show.
I do quite a bit of shit outside though.
Whatever. Yeah. Most of the time when I see you, you're outside smoking.
I quit.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. Okay. Closing comments here as we've crested the 5 o'clock hour. I want to thank everybody again for being a part of this and being a part of the conversation. Let's hit some closing notes here, guys, while I get the kind of outro music rocking and rolling. Let's do highs and lows real quick. What was your favorite part of the show? Mike, you said Elon's stats. I think we got to do that again, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we kind of introduced some new characters, right? We got Josh with the stats, Elon with the stats and the info. I like bringing that to the table. Tommy Cunningham from Stroud actually made the comment about the reaction time discussion, how interesting that was, and no one's brought that up. So I think that some of that analysis is how we dig into those topics, kind of find our topics to follow up on for the next show. So that was my favorite part of it.
JT, I'm sure you loved some vintage Richard Freeman not caring what anybody has to say.
Yep. I like the old, if you don't like it, You can go over there. You can take your fucking ass over there.
Do you agree that the comments weren't near as? I thought the comment. I didn't know.
We going.
JT dropped the F-bomb, but Richard didn't even drop an F-bomb. So kudos to Richard. I know he really had to prep for that, I think.
What's I don't know what song I'm playing, but it ain't gonna work. So we're gonna try a different one. What was I gonna say? I think my high. I do think we have introduced a new character. Elon needs to be a part of this show as often as we can have him, as often as we can afford it, because he really brings. He's got a great speaking voice. All that insider information and stuff, and especially as like silly season starts to ramp up, because a lot of the stuff that's been rumored or speculated for the last several weeks is about to be public knowledge.
Yeah, it's about to
right?
start happening.
It's about to start happening. We will see. I think we will see crew chief changes Monday after Pomona. We will see teams formed Monday after Pomona.
These teams are dying to make these moves and make these announcements.
I do want to say probably the best part of the show was Lyle getting emotional, about winning and coming home 6 years ago. I mean, that was probably, hands down, him being emotional about that. I mean, that's what we all want to see, right?
Don't you think it's cool that we have? I think it's cool the relationship we're developing with some of these folks, right? I mean, we've got like a really great rapport with Lyle that we've all been friends with Lyle for a while, like away from this, but it's been cool to develop a relationship and a rapport with someone on this show. Like as we've had more interactions with Lyle probably in front of a worldwide audience,
for our audience
than anybody.
And the crew, our diehard crew that shows up every week and hits us with the comments and really interacts. I love the relationship we're building with the audience.
The same names, new names.
I've spent a couple hours on the phone with some of the guys that watch our show.
Really?
Yeah.
Eric,
well, anything you can do to get out of working.
Yep, yeah.
No,
it was after work was over. I'm pretty sure.
I get emails every week, some really like thoughtful follow-up emails on topics we've talked about and examples and stuff. So you guys keep it coming, man. I love it.
I think it's amazing, man. I think we're going to have to, I start to think about how we're going to elevate this. And I feel like we're like clipping mountaintops right now. I know that's a little bit of a boastful thing to say, but this is really hitting we're in our stride fully right now, and it's exciting, man.
How about live show at PRI?
I have to.
We're probably going to have to shoot remotely at PRI. We probably need to reach out to them because we're going to need a location, because I'm not going to miss a show. We're not going to miss a show. Like whenever Wednesday, I went to,
if it's Wednesday, I don't think
I'll be setting up on Wednesdays.
That's a arrival and setup day. Maybe we can give a little behind the scenes of what goes on that day
for sure,
and do a show. That may be cool.
I mean, it's pretty neat seeing everybody set up and and everybody has a couple drinks and
what do you guys make of there's people in the comments here. I really feel like a home run has been the Drag Illustrated ride along. Watching that show, even like especially as I watch like Peyton Manning and Eli Manning like dissect Monday Night Football. It's amazing. Like it's not over the top production wise. I mean, they're just literally talking about what they're seeing. And I love to bring that to the table for drag racing, but I'm curious sometimes if we could ever, I think we could expand that. I honestly am feeling some pressure to maybe
Mike
do
on
that.
The show, right?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Because he has the forehead like Manning.
Yeah.
Oh, that is Peyton Manning. Oh, Tommy Cunningham. Great. We're starting
a group. We're starting a support group. Me and Peyton.
What do you think about I think we need to at least consider, and I know it would derail some Sundays, but I'm strongly considering a DI ride along for the NHRA Finals. Pull it up on NHRA.tv, bring some guests in and start talking about
me and JT
what's going on. Oh yeah, you guys will be watching football.
We could just swap. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have I'll have a noon game, you have a late game, and we'll just flip it.
Don't you think that would be I think it would be awesome to talk about an NHRA race as it unfolds, watch it live with other folks and react to this stuff, because man, it would be, I mean, this, you talk about, listen, No Pro King Street Outlaws is great.
Let's just stream it till they shut us down.
I think we could probably get away from it or get away with it.
Yeah. Let's just stream it until they shut us down. And then we're like, who cares?
Yeah. We'll talk to Cromwell, see what he'll let us get away with.
I bet we could get away with it for a little while, because
let's have him on. We could have him on.
Oh, that's a great point.
During that show, we plan to have Glenn Cromwell on.
Well, I mean, and it's not like our viewership is going to detract from what they get on Fox. I mean, let's be honest, So it's like that would be one of those classic can't see the forest for the trees. But I think we need to start working on that. Set it, obviously the date is set in stone, but like kind of build a show around it, identify some guests that we could have on, because you know how much fun it would be to bring on the Elons and bring on Woody Woodruff and bring on some of these other people. Like if they go out early, I guarantee you, hopefully we see our boy Clay Millican in the final, but I guarantee you Clay would happily join in live from the track and let us know how things are going.
Line, yeah.
That's what a great relationship we've developed with that cat. And to be able to do it right here on this show and like do it on the internet, it's been a really amazing thing, man. Well, hey, let's call it a day, man. Billy Carroll, I think he's exactly right. I read this on some YouTube hack thing the other night. If it isn't full screen and you were talking over it, I don't think it's a problem. And I actually think there's some truth to that. It's there, like the copyright machine can't catch it or whatever, So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, another show is in the books. I appreciate you guys all. Again, remember to click like, click share. The challenge for this week is to tell someone. Tell someone about the show, challenge them to watch it, challenge them to participate in the conversation. They'll find it as fun as you do. Till next week, folks, we'll see you. Same bat time, same bat channel. Say your prayers, take your vitamins, race safe. We'll see you next time. Thanks, T. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you guys.
Later.
Thanks, guys. Yep.